Hello, a very good morning. It's 7 o'clock. This is Mornings with me, Anna Jones. Here's how things are looking. Devastation in Nepal, hundreds killed and many more missing after flash floods wreak havoc in the region. More than 30 British tourists are amongst those unaccounted for, with rescuers struggling to reach the disaster zone. Well, in Tibet, at least 3 people have died and more than 500 are missing there. We'll have the latest. Police named the woman and her 7-year-old niece who died in a house fire near Middlesbrough as Natalie MacDonald and Valentina Foster. Also today, we'll take a look at whether Meta's $18 billion settlement will be a turning point leading to true social media reform for young people. Plus, doctors question the rise in men using testosterone replacement therapy with the risk it may carry lifelong consequences. Hello, a very good morning. Thanks for joining us here today. And we begin with the devastation in Nepal, where rescuers are desperately searching for survivors after extreme flooding hit the Nepal-Tibet border. This, of course, is a very fast-moving situation, so the numbers are changing by the hour. But let's just show you the moment that the flash floods hit Nepal, described by those on the ground as something from the movies. A glacial collapse is now being blamed, not an earthquake, as was originally thought. And these early images that we're getting of the aftermath show the scale of the destruction there. In the affected areas, there are houses, vehicles and trees all completely submerged or buried in mudslides. Let's just show you some of the pictures coming into us from Tibet, where hundreds are also missing. Once again, this body of water has brought enormous devastation on both sides of the border. So here's how things are looking right now. At least 162 people have died in Nepal, but that death toll is expected to rise. A huge search and rescue operation is underway for at least 826 people missing in Nepal, including 600 foreigners. 33 of those are Britons. The others are from India, the United States, Australia and Canada. Chinese state media are reporting that 555 people are missing in Tibet, and amongst those were 260 foreign nationals. The death toll there is currently 3. Well, our international correspondent John Sparks begins our coverage, and a warning that some viewers may find his report distressing.
It came with little warning. A great wave of water, a muddy deluge, forcing its way down a mountain valley. And many in this Nepalese town were caught unaware. My God, a house is collapsing, says one. These waters, unleashed by an avalanche of ice and rock, and the power of this flash flood is undeniable. The town's bridge ripped from its foundations, then consumed. Here, someone films from the back of a school bus, and we hear the sounds of curiosity and wonder give way to terror. On the street, bystanders begin to run, while the bus driver tries to accelerate from the scene. These images were captured from the border with neighbouring Tibet. We see people fleeing from a Chinese border post as a wall of water follows from behind. If a warning was provided, it was clearly inadequate. Moments later, the flood sweeps away all in its path, the equivalent, this, of a massive explosion.
The river has, completely left a trail of destruction like never seen before. As you can see, like never heard before. It has been a complete disaster. I've never seen in my life, something like this, a flood like this proportion. It starts in the Himalayas, and it's so great that it just washes everything away in the wake.
These river valleys form part of a key economic corridor linking Nepal with China, but they're vulnerable to floods and landslides and increasingly unpredictable as global temperatures rise. This disaster took place just before 9 a.m. in the district of Rasuwa, north of the capital, Kathmandu. It's clear that dozens of homes have been swept away, along with roads and power stations and other infrastructure. In their place, we see great swathes of mud carried down from higher elevations in the mountains. It is a reality demonstrated in satellite photos taken before and after the flood. In Nepal, the authorities have begun a major search and rescue operation, but rescue teams must contend with the conditions, and helicopters and airplanes have few places to land. Charity workers say vast areas are now inaccessible.
We have to start thinking about this right away. These people have lost their homes, they've lost everything they own. So the first, of course, they need just hygiene kits, they just need blankets, they just need the basics. But immediately after that, we need to start thinking about more permanent places for them to live.
Hundreds of people have been reported missing, with many believed to be foreign nationals, Indians on pilgrimage and Britons on holiday among their number. Nepalese officials are saying they fear major casualties in the aftermath of a great wall of water and mud. John Sparks, Sky News.
Well, let's get the latest now on the situation in Tibet. Our Asia correspondent Helen Ann Smith joins us now from Beijing. We can see from the pictures, Helen Ann, how awful the situation is in Nepal. What can you tell us about how it's affected Tibet as well?
Well, I think, Hannah, what we know at the moment is it's similarly catastrophic, similarly devastating, terrifying, and just simply awful. The thing about Tibet in the coming hours and the coming days is that it's going to be far harder for us to figure out what is going on there, because whereas the world's media is probably on its way to the Nepal side, this part of Tibet is incredibly remote. It is incredibly tightly controlled. We as journalists are not allowed to go there. Even as tourists, you need very special permits to access that to Tibet at all, let alone that particular part of Tibet, which you need additional permits for. That's not just for foreign tourists, even Chinese tourists going there need special permits. So it is going to be really hard for us to just figure out exactly what is going on there. We're going to be reliant on Chinese authorities and the Chinese state media. But look, what they're saying at the moment is, of course, pretty devastating. Looking at some 558 missing, 260 of those foreign nationals. Of course, those numbers will be changing regularly, I'd imagine. Worth saying that the foreign nationals in the Tibet side are probably more likely to be Nepali workers, perhaps, less likely to be tourists for the reasons that I explained. But that main port area that the flash flood swept through, it's just worth saying a few things about that. Jirong Port, it's called, and it is Tibet's largest land port. It's an incredibly important economic source for Tibet. Locals have told Chinese state media that it's likely that hundreds of people might have been waiting there for their clearances to cross the border between the two countries at the time it's hit. And actually, just a demonstration of how unstable the land is there. That port was actually hit by a mudslide in July 2025, so only just over a year ago. It left 17 people missing at the time, swept away a bridge, and it actually only reopened properly in January this year. So just a sense of how prone this area is to disasters. And that, again, is something the Chinese authorities have really been stressing in terms of the search and rescue efforts. When I say remote, I mean it really is incredibly remote. It is about 6 times further to that disaster zone on the Tibet side from Tibet's main city of Lhasa, 6 times further than it is from the disaster zone on the Nepal side to the capital of Kathmandu. So just a sense of the distances that they're looking at. Hugely mountainous, hugely remote, very few roads. And the Chinese authorities are saying lots of those roads, particularly closer to the disaster zone itself, have been washed away. State media reporting this big fleet of vehicles sort of queuing to make their way down there. And the authorities saying that rain is forecast past, and that rescue efforts really dangerous just because of the instability of that land, the steepness of the mountains, the narrowness of the valleys. So I think just incredibly difficult conditions lie ahead. And again, as I say, for us as foreign journalists to access the Tibet side is next to impossible without government permission to do so, and that's probably pretty unlikely to come. So I think we should be careful not to forget about what's happening on the Tibet side, albeit it will be harder to access.
Indeed. Helen Ann, thanks very much indeed. So huge challenges there as far as the rescue effort is concerned in Tibet. Let's find out a little bit more about the rescue and aid effort in Nepal as well. We're joined now by Anish Raj Shrestha from Action Aid Nepal. He's in Kathmandu for us this morning. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for talking to us. First of all, give us a sense of the scale of this disaster. Have you seen anything like this before there?
Hi. Well, actually, to be very honest, we all Nepalese people are in really shock and awe because of the scale of the enormity of this disaster has bestowed upon us. I mean, like, we have never seen such disasters. Yes, we have been quite a few. It's not been a decade. It's just been a decade when we faced earthquake, and also like there were some small scale of floods that happened, kept happening. But amount of this scale, I think we all Nepalese are still in shock and trying to figure out what just happened, because it happened in such a short period of time. That's why I think what we have recently observed is that around 40,000 people were affected and around 8,000 households were being impacted. So although the search and rescue are going on, we expected that the number of death casualties of people are going to be really high.
So the scale of the challenge, enormous. I mean, to what extent are there rescue teams on the ground already?
I think the Nepal government has blocked the roads so that the other travelers could not go through that area. But there are a lot of paramilitary force, and the Nepal police and Nepal army has been deployed for the search and rescue. So primarily there are these security forces are on the ground, and it has been, like they have been very quick to respond to situations, which is a good part. And so many lives has been saved accordingly. But yes, there are quite a number of forces, and also like 12 in this morning, like 12 helicopters or airlift services has been deployed.
And to what extent is it a challenge to get to the areas affected? I mean, we're looking at pictures at the moment of this huge wall of mud that was coming down through the valley. How hard is it to actually get to the people who need it the most?
I think it is going to be one of the toughest challenges because, as you can see, there are numerous bridges were been swept away just like that without any. There are no any for certain period of certain length of roads. There are no bridges. I think from our information, around 19 bridges were collapsed. So the roads are collapsed. So it is really going to be a very tough time for any responders, be that to government officials or to any humanitarian organizations to provide services. But for now, we are primarily relying on any coordinations that requires airlift services. So in that sense, it is going to be a very tough.
And whole villages have been wiped out, haven't they, by this? I mean, people have lost everything. What is going to be needed most? What's going to be the priority?
I think the priority is to respond and try to save as much as lives as we could. Also, there are a lot of things that we are trying to prepare, temporary shelters, food items, non-food items, and basic humanitarian dignities kits that we are trying to prepare so that they could have an immediate relief, some sort of that.
Do you expect teams from outside Nepal to come to help?
I think in this kind of situations, friends from outside Nepal has been really generous. And I think, yes, we have been coordinated by with our teams as well. So I think, yes, we expected them. And also, like, we have just received information that the government of India and China are also providing aid rescues. So, yeah.
You said that you'd never seen anything like this before in Nepal, and hence the shock must be huge for this nation. But has there been experience of mudslides? We heard from our correspondent saying in Tibet there was one just last year. Has there been experience like this, but on a smaller scale, that you can build on in your work?
Yeah, I think Nepal is also like mountainous and terrorist regions. There are a lot of, like the glacial lakes that are in risk and vulnerable zones, we expected. And yes, in smaller scales, like last year in Tibet, there are some sort of, also in October 2024, we had a massive floods that swept away Kathmandu and various places. But to see anything of this scale is beyond our expectations. So, but like we said, we're definitely doing our work based on this and try to assess the situations. And also, this is kind of like great insight for us that what could come, in future, and how could we prepare ourselves as well. So I think this is definitely point where we have to rethink about the disasters, not only the disasters in terms of where we have our control, but also be serious with the transnational disasters, something like this.
Well, Anish Raj Shrestha from Action Aid Nepal, we so appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, especially when you must be incredibly busy. And thank you so much for sharing with us what's happening there. Thank you. Let's just take a look at the scene live this is Nuwakot in Nepal, where we've been showing you pictures of the mud and water which have inundated the town there. It's a historic district in central Nepal, located about 60 kilometres west of Kathmandu. So let's bring you up to date with a little bit more on this. Phoebe Southworth and our political correspondent Alex Rogers are both here with me. Hi there, both of you. Phoebe, get us up to date with what we know about the numbers missing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we saw those horrendous images there, didn't we, of the mud sort of sliding, destroying everything in its path, and that's obviously proving very difficult in terms of rescuing people. And, of course, there was those satellite images as well, showing how much of that lush green landscape has now completely been engulfed by mud. In terms of the numbers, we know that more than 1,000 people are now missing. Of those, 341 are foreign nationals, and then of that group of foreign nationals, 33 are UK citizens. We don't yet know much more about the identities of those people, but what we do know is that a mountain trekking company said that 12 of its British customers are missing, and that includes a 13-year-old girl as well. The Foreign Office has said they are providing assistance to anyone that needs it, and I could read you a number just now of where people should ring if they need help. It's 0207 008 5000. So we await updates on who exactly these British victims in this case are. But at the moment, we are watching and waiting to see if there's any further information.
Yeah, indeed. And I know you'll keep us up to date if we hear anything. But, Alex, have we heard from the government at all?
Yeah, we've had some initial reaction from Andy Burnham, really expressing his sympathy with what's been happening. And he says, "These scenes emerging from along the Nepal-China border are devastating. My thoughts are with all those affected, including the families and loved ones of British nationals missing in this tragedy. We will do everything we can to support British nationals impacted in the region and are in touch with the relevant authorities to offer support." The Foreign Office has said something similar. They're saying they're deeply saddened by the loss of life and devastation. And they also say that British nationals should follow local authority advice and exercise caution while travelling, and point to the number to call that Phoebe just read out. In terms of financial support, we haven't had any update on that. We don't know the money that we're going to provide to get our nationals out, but we do know that the US has announced that they're sending $500,000. So let's see what kind of figure we come up with.
Yeah, and I'll be talking to Pat McFadden, the Work and Pension Secretary, shortly, and we'll certainly ask him that question and see if we get more details there. But thanks both very much indeed. We'll, of course, keep you up to date with all the latest from Nepal and Tibet throughout the morning. But let's just fill you in on some of the other headlines now. And a woman and her 7-year-old niece who died in a house fire near Middlesbrough have been named. 34-year-old Natalie MacDonald and Valentina Foster were killed in the blaze in Grangetown, under a mile from the site of Saturday's deadly wrong-way crash on the A66. Police are not ruling out a link between the two incidents and have arrested 2 men on suspicion of murder. A British man has become the first person in the world to have a brain tumour removed using live AI-assisted surgery. Doctors at the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery in London used the tool to highlight which areas they needed to avoid. 48-year-old Rhys Hibbert says the operation has saved his eyesight. The alleged mastermind of the September the 11th terror attacks will go on military trial in 2028. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed had been held at Guantanamo Bay, a US detention camp in Cuba, since 2006. The 61-year-old and 3 co-defendants face charges over the attacks, which killed nearly 3,000 people. And the world's most valuable company, Nvidia, has posted a gross profit hit $133.3 billion US in the first half of the year. That's far exceeding Wall Street's expectations. So let's talk to the government now. I'm joined by the Work and Pension Secretary, Pat McFadden. Very good morning to you. I do want to start by just asking about your reaction to the terrible scenes we've seen in Nepal, with many dead and many missing. Can you give us an update on the Britons affected?
Well, the reports overnight suggested 160 people confirmed dead, with 33 Britons missing. But it is a dynamic situation. We've really only heard from the Nepalese authorities at this moment. The picture on the Chinese side of the border is less clear. My colleague, the Foreign Secretary, Ed Miliband, has posted some information on social media, including phone numbers that families of those concerned can call. But I think most people will understand that with people missing, our principal effort at the moment is to support the Nepalese authorities in the immediate rescue effort and the effort to find those missing. And the total number beyond the UK could run into many hundreds.
Can you tell us a little bit more about those efforts then to help the Nepalese government?
Well, they are doing everything they can to try to rescue those affected, to try to find those missing. We're supporting them in that effort. There's consular assistance available for families of those missing. I would urge them to use the phone numbers that the Foreign Secretary has posted. And as the picture hopefully becomes more clear in the next day or two, we'll do everything we can to get the maximum information to people.
Will you be offering financial support? We've heard from the United States that they're sending $500,000 in immediate humanitarian assistance. Will the UK be...
I think that's likely that we support the effort. It's in every country's interest to do this. There's been a number of international offers to the Nepalese government in the last few days, and of course the UK will play its part in that.
And as you say, it's a dynamic situation, so we'll be keeping everybody updated. But I want to turn to the announcement that you're making today. You're talking about the first cohort of young people to start work through the government's Jobs Guarantee Scheme. First of all, give us some details. How many people are we talking about here in this first tranche of jobs?
In the first tranche, it'll be a few hundred, but over the next few years, we aim for 90,000 young people to be helped by this scheme. And let me just explain what it is. This is for young people who've been out of work for 18 months or more. And at that point, the government will step in with a partner employer. I visited Boots, for example, yesterday in Nottingham, and we will offer to pay the wages for the young person for 6 months at 25 hours a week at national minimum wage rates. And the reason that we do that is we are really concerned with what I call the stickiness of the system, that once young people are out of work for a long time, it's very, very hard to get them into work. And I tell you, visiting yesterday was an inspiring experience. I've been in this game a long time. There's a lot of policy chats in some, dry rooms in Whitehall. And when you see the human effect of these young people yesterday who are working for the first time in years, the increase in their hope, their belief, their confidence, it was remarkable, and we want that for a lot more young people.
Well, yes, and I'm sure for them that they're very grateful for these opportunities, but there are now more than 1 million 16 to 24-year-olds who are NEETs, not in employment, education or training. The reason I asked about numbers was because you're talking about a couple of hundred now, and as you say, 90,000 over 3 years. So it's barely scratching the surface, isn't it?
Well, the NEET numbers are too high, and they've been too high for a long time. They've been running 1 million or thereabouts for some years. They, in fact, went up by 250,000 between the end of the pandemic and the general election 2 years ago. The difference now is we've got real energy in trying to offer hope to the young people affected. So it's not just about the 90,000 who will be helped by the jobs guarantee. We've also put a hiring incentive in place for employers who want to take on a young person who's been out of work for 6 months or more of £3,000. That will help tens of thousands more. Crucially, on top of that, I'm changing the apprenticeship system to address a long-term decline in youth apprenticeship starts, down 40% in the past decade. So we want 50,000 more youth apprenticeship starts. And on top of all that, we will have 300,000 more work experience placements for young people out of work, because they're often caught in this bind. You can't get a job because you've got no experience. And how do you get experience without having a job? And that's why the Prime Minister and I were at Sainsbury's yesterday, a great British company that's offered 10,000 work experience placements for young people.
You talk about employers offering hiring, you were offering employers hiring incentives, but the Tories would say that there would be more jobs for young people if you hadn't hobbled businesses, if you hadn't raised national insurance for businesses and you hadn't raised the minimum wage.
We have asked businesses to pay more in recent years, but I would say with regard to national insurance, we've put in place a tax break within the system where employers don't pay any national insurance contribution if the person hired is under the age of 21. We've also raised the threshold for small businesses at which employers' national insurance starts to be paid, and that will help up to 40% of the companies in the country. So there are tax breaks within the national insurance system. And on top of those, we now have this hiring incentive, which at £3,000 is roughly equivalent to the employer's national insurance contribution for a young worker, and that goes right up to the age of 24.
However, Andy Burnham was asked about business taxes yesterday, wasn't he? And he said he was trying to make life easier for people. And he said he's asking the question, how can he meaningfully deal with the cost of living and the cost of business? I mean, can we expect taxes on businesses to come down? Is he hinting at that?
Well, as you'd expect, any minister you have on this show and you ask them about taxes, they'll tell you tax is a matter for the Chancellor, and we don't speculate about them. But one of the first things that Andy Burnham did when he became Prime Minister a month ago was to have a business rate reduction for pubs, hospitality, music venues. That's going to benefit about 30,000 venues and pubs across the UK to the tune of about £1,000. I'm not saying that's massive, but it's an indication of one of a number of things that he's done to give what we call a bit of breathing space to consumers and to businesses.
A bit of breathing space. I'm sure people are grateful for breathing space, but they want more action, don't they? And I'm not asking you to tell me precise policies, because I know that you won't, but Andy Burnham is saying he's acutely conscious of how hard the operating environment is for businesses big and small. Is that a sign that you think that you've perhaps gone too hard on businesses?
I think it's a sign that we appreciate the hard work that any business does, large or small. He said in the interview in the Financial Times this morning, he wants to see wealth creation and wealth creators not only forging a path here, but also staying here, because, of course, the traditional British problem has been great ingenuity, great ideas, but often when it comes to scaling up, they end up being developed elsewhere. So that's a great commitment from the Prime Minister, and from that, policy will flow in the coming months.
I noticed I'm just about to talk about Meta, and it occurs to me that I should get your view on that. Meta has offered to settle a case that's been brought against it by states in America. It's offering financial compensation, but it's also saying that it's going to change the safety features for young people, while also saying that it's done nothing wrong, I should say. Would you expect them to roll out those safety features in this country as well?
Yeah, we would. I mean, we don't want a situation where young people in America have got a higher rate of protection than young people in the UK. But we're not just leaving it to Meta. We're taking action ourselves. The previous Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, announced a ban on social media for young people to come into force next year. We're also having nighttime curfews. We've got to do something about this endless scrolling, which is so addictive for young people. And, you know, I deal with the issues around young people and work, and that often involves issues of mental health and confidence and so on. So I think there can be a link between this issue and some of the employment and labour market issues that we're dealing with. There's a great side to this technology. I know it's opened up a world of knowledge that didn't exist when I was growing up, but we also need to operate in a way that understands how addictive it is and make sure that children and young people can have a real childhood in the real physical world, better for their mental health and better for all of us in the future.
Pat McFadden, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you. So let's get more then on that settlement that Meta has agreed to pay. Our science and technology editor, Tom Clark, has this.
It's a landmark settlement, Meta agreeing to pay up to $18 billion to US states and make significant changes to its platforms for teens. But will it make them safer? The case brought in California by 29 US states alleged the owner of Facebook and Instagram misrepresented the harm its apps caused children and used their data illegally. Meta faced damages of up to $1.4 trillion. In the settlement, Meta denied any wrongdoing and says it will pay states between $13 and $18 billion over 10 years.
There was potential liability of over $1 trillion for Meta. And I think that given the way the trial was starting out, that might have been a clear indication to the company that this is a time to really think about settling.
It will also make significant changes to its products, including improved age verification, a 2-hour screen limit for teen accounts controlled by a parent, a nighttime block between midnight and 6 a.m, a ban on displaying likes and reactions, as well as options to switch off autoplay and algorithmic recommendations. One important detail, Meta will pay the higher settlement if rivals like TikTok and YouTube commit to similar safeguards. This settlement could have industry-wide impacts. For now, proposed changes only apply to Instagram and Facebook in the US, but the settlement suggests a direction of travel that extends here too.
At least parts of Europe are going as far, or if not further, than even the settlement goes. So you're seeing a lot of pretty stringent requirements on social media, particularly as it relates to minors.
But will it make a difference? Teens in Australia quickly found ways to get around its under-16 social media ban. Campaigners hoped this case might have forced Meta and other tech firms to design products safe for children. Limiting access and opt-out options don't remove the content and features that they say are harming kids.
Now, testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT, has been labelled game-changing by some men. But there are doctors who are concerned that social media is pushing people towards its use unnecessarily, and it can come with lifelong consequences. Well, Sky News' Barnaby Papadopoulos has been investigating.
I've got the actual prescription, testosterone itself.
Ben is one of a growing number of men injecting testosterone every week.
This has been game-changing for me, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Many say this drug has changed their lives, but some of Britain's top doctors are worried.
It causes high blood pressure, it makes your cholesterol worse. I've got no doubt that if everyone took it in the world, then you would actually hasten the demise of many men.
Masculinity is the resistance.
Is social media convincing men that testosterone levels are key to understanding masculinity?
If you weren't getting tested and you weren't taking testosterone replacement therapy, that you weren't this real man.
Others say this is a condition long under-researched, one finally getting the attention it deserves.
The best single indicator of a man's health is his testosterone level.
So is testing and treating our testosterone levels really the key to improving our health? Or is the wellness industry selling men solutions to a problem that, for many, doesn't actually exist?
And Barnaby's here with me now. Barnaby, this sounds like a really interesting debate. Talk us through it a little bit more.
Yeah, it is absolutely a debate. So first of all, let's just explain what testosterone is. It's a hormone that both men and women have. In men, it's the male sex hormone, and having enough of it contributes to things like normal sexual function, muscle mass. And not having enough testosterone can cause sexual dysfunction, as well as symptoms like depression, anxiety and tiredness. The reason there's a debate is because some doctors would say that having low testosterone is actually very rare. It affects a small number of men, and they believe the treatments are quite invasive, and therefore you should only get treatment if you really need it. Because testosterone replacement therapy, TRT, can cause infertility, it's often lifelong, it's very expensive, and there are some concerns it can cause long-term health problems. But there are doctors on the other side of the debate who say, actually, we're massively undertreating and underdiagnosing low testosterone. And some of the men we've spoken to in this piece have been prescribed testosterone by private clinics. They might not have been able to get it on the NHS, and they say their lives have been transformed. Of course, with the caveat that it is going to have an impact on their long-term health, potentially, that it's expensive, and they'll be on it for the rest of their lives. So this isn't just about medicine, it's also about marketing, because these clinics obviously have an interest in getting men on these treatments.
And you say for the rest of their lives, is that because men stop producing testosterone, probably women as well, if you start taking it, in pill form or whatever form it's in?
Yeah, that's absolutely
Gel form.
right. So if you take testosterone replacement therapy, which is often an injection, you might take it twice a week, that stops the body naturally producing testosterone. And so if you stop taking the treatments, your levels will go back to what they were before you started eventually. So it can have quite an impact coming off it. And also it stops the body producing sperm naturally. So it can cause infertility unless you take other drugs, which of course makes it even more expensive. And so this is a growing debate and a growing issue. So in the United States, there's a company called Hims, which is a public company. So we know how much it's worth. It was established 9 years ago. It's now worth almost £8 billion. So it's a growing, men's wellness, men's health is a growing industry. And it's now being played out, this conversation at the highest levels. Just last month, the US Secretary of War, self-styled Pete Hegseth, announced that all US military service members are going to be screened for testosterone deficiency once they reach the age of 30. So it's a debate dividing medicine. It's certainly not going away.
No, indeed. Really interesting. Barnaby, thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Do stay with us. In a moment, we're going to be talking about how parents across the country are going to go on strike today to demand proper paternity leave and flexible working rights. We'll be talking about that next.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News. Is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Let's just remind you of our top story here today. And rescuers are desperately searching for survivors after extreme flooding hit the Nepal-Tibet border. At least 162 people have died in Nepal, but that number is expected to rise significantly. A huge search and rescue operation is underway now for at least 826 people missing in Nepal, including 600 foreigners. And of those unaccounted for, 33 are Britons. The others are from India, the United States, Australia and Canada. And a glacial collapse is currently being blamed. Originally, they thought an earthquake was behind it, but they're now thinking it's a glacial collapse that's the cause of this wall of mud that has been running through the country. While these pictures are from Tibet, Chinese state media are reporting that 558 people are also missing in Tibet. Amongst those were 260 foreign nationals, and the death toll there is currently 3. Let's take a look at a live shot of the scene now. It looks like a clear blue day there. This is Nuwakot, which we've been showing you pictures of as mud and water inundated the town earlier. It's a historic district and a town in central Nepal. It's located about 60 kilometres west of Kathmandu. And, of course, we'll bring you all the latest developments from Nepal and from Tibet as we get them throughout the morning. In the meantime, though, here, working mums and dads across the country are going to be joining the UK's first parent strike this morning. They're demanding better paternity leave and they're calling for stronger, flexible working rights. Well, here with me, excuse me, is Anna Whitehouse, who's the founder of Mother Pucker and Flex Appeal, one of the campaign groups which organised the protest. I'm going to ask you a question so I can clear my throat, Anna. Welcome to you. Nice to see you. So, you are calling for parents to go out on strike, as you say today, calling for stronger paternity rights for men. Why is it that mothers in particular should back men having more time off after babies?
Well, I think I've just lived it. So I have a 1-year-old daughter and essentially at that 2-week juncture, paternity leave in the UK is 2 weeks. Men or non-birthing partners walk out of the door to go back to work as your breasts are leaking, your tears are falling, your hormones are raging, your scars are burning, and your baby is crying. And that is the juncture in the UK where we think it's acceptable for our partners to walk out the door. And so today we're calling for mums and dads, dads and dads, parents, to join us in downing tools to fight for 6 weeks parental leave, paternity leave, over 2 weeks, and flexible working that actually works, not just this kind of we're family friendly or yes, you can do 4 days in 5 days if you want on compressed hours and then end up, you know, being essentially extorted. It is about supporting the women, holding the women who are left holding the baby.
Talk to me a little bit more about the effects. You say you've just had a baby or a year ago and you've had a baby before that as well. Talk to us about the experiences that you've had.
So I had one baby in the Netherlands, and in the Netherlands you get a 10-day maternity nurse who is there supporting you. You never go back full-time, so you have a mamadag and a papadag for men and women, because they recognise that parenting is a joint role. It's not just for mothers to carry. Whereas in the UK, the bulk of childcare, it's not a burden, it's a huge privilege to have children, but the bulk of childcare is strapped so firmly to women's shoulders the second you hear that first cry in the hospital.
Presumably there are lots of men that would like to have more time with their child as well.
Oh, my God. You know, I think gone are the hapless dad tropes of a Mad Men era where men went out and earned the bacon and women cooked it. No, it is all hands on deck. And I think the UK parental leave system is failing parents, specifically mothers. Ultimately, we are left with our careers in tatters. We have a loss of identity, a loss of hair, a loss of mind, a loss of time, you know, a loss of career. We go through all of this because the way that the system is set up is for women to carry it all, when actually there's men who are going to be joining us today at the parent strike across the UK. This is the first ever parent strike. Women have striked before, women have fought for this before, but finally we have men by our side recognising that they want to hold the baby too, and we should enable them to do so.
You're focusing on parental leave. What about the message to companies as well? I mean, there'll be many enlightened companies that are trying to be flexible and trying to make sure that women's careers aren't damaged by taking time out for a baby. But do you think there are enough of them who have that approach?
I think in the pandemic we saw huge inroads, you know, in terms of flexible working, but it has been rolled back. It's been like, I called it a silent reflex, where every single step we made in the pandemic proving that flexible working, working from home, compressed hours can work, it's been rolled back. And so we're seeing headlines, billionaires, titans of business going, everyone back 5 days a week. There's no stats, no research, no facts, nor figures to back up productivity in that sense. And so today we're going to be fighting for flexible working, but I will actually go further and say it's inclusive working. It's no more complicated. This isn't a knackered mummy asking to see more of her baby. This is a woman, a human, asking for employers to be humane and recognise that two people have a baby. Enable those two people to hold that baby. It's that simple. It's inclusive working, not just flexible working, including as many humans at the table, this table, as possible.
And I'm sure lots of people watching will completely understand what you're saying. There might be some businesses, though, that are saying we're really struggling, we're finding it really hard at the moment. You know, there's a cost of living crisis, so people are struggling to buy our goods. We're struggling to pay wages and keep people on our books already. Can they afford to lose more people from the workforce, they might say?
Lose more people in the sense
no, in terms of letting men take more time out of work.
But I think it's people, isn't it? Why is it a gendered thing? You know,
well, just when you're calling for more paternity rights, that's the only reason I'm saying that.
Yeah, well, I suppose mothers have to, so why can't fathers, essentially? You know, I think it's happening in Iceland, it's happening in Sweden, it's happening in Norway. Equality is equality, and it's enabling a workplace where men and women can go to work, can contribute to the economy. That's all I'm asking for, really, whether that's childcare. You know, I was paying to go to work. I was paying to have my job because childcare costs in this country are so extortionate. We need to see childcare as infrastructure, like roads, railways, signposts. You wouldn't build the M25 and go, sorry, we've run out of tarmac. You know, this is about holding men and women, and this isn't doing mummies a favour. This is literally about cold, hard cash for businesses, enable humans to work in a way that works for them. But also, it's a relationship. So not every single employee gets the flexible working they need or want, but not every employer gets what they want. It's a relationship. You discuss it, you work through it. We're not in the Industrial Revolution when the 9 to 5 was cemented, when essentially men went out and worked and women stayed home. It's a whole new era. And we're two-income households now. It's not about me wanting to stay home with my child. I can't afford to. I don't know any of my friends who can afford to stay home. This isn't a hobby or a recreational side hustle, having a baby. It's fundamental, and birth rates are currently on the floor, and the government now is quite interested in why. And the reason why is because we're not being supported. 6 weeks paternity leave as baseline, flexible working that actually works. Default, don't put the onus on the employee, accept that this is a new world. We've moved on from the Industrial Revolution, and men and women raise babies, and men and women work. Enable that. It's no more complicated.
And the government has actually launched an 18-month consultation on this, hasn't it?
Yes.
On parental leave and the pay system. I think it's due to report in January.
Yep.
What are your hopes for that?
And this is why we're doing this today. We wanted to get ahead of that consultation. We wanted to make noise. In 1975, the Icelandic women's strike happened. The women downed tools and the economy came to a halt. Without parents, without mothers, there isn't a society. It's where it all begins. And I truly believe some people in government to this point have forgotten where they came from. Your mother, your father. And so I want to see that paternity leave get to 6 weeks, enable, like I've just experienced, I have a 1-year-old, and sorry, it makes me emotional talking about it. I don't think anyone can understand that feeling of your partner walking out that door at 2 weeks where you're barely able to hold a baby. If you've had a C-section, it's major abdominal surgery. We're not just talking about a fluffy little side hustle here. It's seismic what happens. So 6 weeks paternity leave, flexible working by default. And I want to see cultural change as well as legislative change where employers don't see mothers, parents as a burden, but as an integral part of the workforce. And like I said, inclusive working, including as many humans as possible at your table.
Anna Whitehouse, really interesting to talk to you this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Let's take a quick look at the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, it looks unsettled into the bank holiday weekend, with thundery downpours bringing the risk of localised flooding, but the storm's extent and distribution are uncertain. Heavy thundery rain will push north across England, Wales and the southeast of Ireland this morning. Hail, frequent lightning and gusty winds will be additional hazards, but sunny spells and a few showers will follow to the south. Elsewhere, it'll be largely fine, bar the odd shower, mainly over eastern Scotland, and it'll be warm and humid. And the afternoon will see some heavy rain edging into central Britain.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Stay with us in just a moment. We're going to be going through our... Oh, no, we're going straight into it. Stay with us right now because we're going to do our news review. I thought we had a break coming, but no. Our political correspondent at The Independent, Millie Cook, is here. Millie, you'll have to tell me what we're talking about because I don't have a list. So tell me what we're kicking off with.
We are talking about Nepal this morning.
We are.
So, obviously, I mean, some really, really shocking images coming out of Nepal. The pictures we've got here are... I mean, there are just images of the sort of mud coming down the hill. We've got full buildings covered in rubble and mud. At the moment, I think every time I check, the death toll and number of missing people appears to be rising. I think this morning, I mean, about 10 minutes ago, it seemed to be about 800 missing, which is a huge amount. And I think at the moment, they can't even fully assess the scale of the damage because there's so much movement happening and so many of the buildings are so unstable. Helicopters can't land properly. So, I mean, it's just a deeply shocking and tragic situation that's unfolding. And I imagine over the next few hours and days, we're going to see more and more images coming out.
Yeah, and we were talking to an aid worker just in this hour, talking about how the scale of this has shocked everybody. They've had mudslides in the past, but the sheer scale is... extraordinary, whole villages wiped out. And as you say, for the rescue workers, incredibly hard for them to reach the areas affected. This has started in an incredibly narrow valley in the Himalayas, so it's very hard to get to. And while most of our information will come out of Nepal, there's also an ongoing situation in Tibet as well. This has happened right on the border, hasn't it? And very hard to find out more about the situation there because it's incredibly inaccessible. It's a long way away from the capital.
Yeah, and also a lot of the, at the moment, a lot of the missing tolls and the death tolls, they're not sure whether they're overlapping figures or whether they're separate figures. So I think Tibet at the moment has a missing toll of about 600, I believe. But they're not entirely sure at the moment whether or not that is a separate number to the number that's coming out of Nepal or whether a lot of those numbers are sort of overlapping. So I think it is quite an unclear and rapidly developing situation.
Exactly, which means that newspapers are quite quickly outdated, aren't they? That's the thing. We'll have plenty more on that in the next hour, but let's turn to some of the other front pages, shall we? Because we've got the Telegraph next. This is a story, well, the headline is Germany in talks to fund Trident, so talk us through that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story, and I think that one that speaks to the wider sort of geopolitical landscape at the moment, which is that Germany is in talks with the UK and France about possibly putting money into Britain's nuclear deterrent. So rather than developing their own nuclear weapons, they would be looking to invest in Britain's. And I think there was a German source here saying that they would rather put money into Britain's nuclear deterrent, then develop their own bomb as a result of sort of wartime guilt from World War II, which is quite interesting how that sort of, we're still seeing the lasting impact of that now in our politics. But I mean, the wider point here is that we're seeing a lot more collaboration between European nations when it comes to defence because of increasing turbulence from the US. There's sort of increasing questions over what Donald Trump will do next. He's threatened to pull out of NATO. He's made comments about not necessarily sticking to NATO's principle of collective defence, which means that if one NATO ally is attacked, all of them will come to its defence. Trump has effectively said that if Europe isn't defending itself properly and putting enough money into its defence, he won't get involved. So I think there is a bit of a scramble in Europe to try and make sure that we're investing properly and that we're fully prepared to defend ourselves even without the US's support, especially in the face of increasing global turbulence, whether it's Russia or the Middle East.
Yeah, really interesting picture, and also really interesting to see what kind of commitment to spending on defence this government under Andy Burnham comes forward with. Let's quickly move on to the Meta story, because this has got huge implications, hasn't it? This is picked up in the Eye, but all the papers will be covering it. And this was the surprise move by Meta yesterday to settle this huge court case that had just started, whereby, is it 29 states? A huge number of states were pursuing Meta over protection of children.
Yeah, it's a fascinating case because I think historically it's been quite hard to get Meta to sort of cooperate when it comes to this kind of thing because it's such a powerful company. But here we're seeing a massive payout. It's a £12.5 billion settlement, $17 billion. And effectively they haven't said they've done any wrongdoing, but they've agreed to lots of terms. So think restrictions on the amount of time that teenagers can spend on social media and sort of caps on school hours, so to make sure that they're a bit more protected from harms.
Well, yes, and the question now, I guess, is whether those particular measures are effective, but also whether they'll roll them out in other countries as well, because this is obviously affecting just the United States at the moment. But I wonder whether or not they will do them in other countries, and partly because they probably fear more social media bans like the one introduced in Australia and talked about here as well.
I think it does speak to a shift in the balance of power. Governments are really trying to clamp down on social media companies. Obviously, this does apply only in the US. It won't apply in the UK. The UK government has said it's watching closely, and I think it just shows how much, it will speak to how much muscle different governments can use against these tech companies and how willing they are to stand up to them.
Yeah, really interesting. They also want other social media companies to make similar moves, or they won't pay all the money as well, which is interesting. Millie, thanks very much indeed. Thanks for providing me with the list, and we'll see you in the next hour. Top Stories coming up next.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Hello, a very good morning. It's 8 o'clock. This is Mornings with me, Anna Jones. Here are headlines. Devastation in Nepal, hundreds killed and many more missing after flash floods wreak havoc in the region. More than 30 British tourists are amongst those unaccounted for, with rescuers struggling to reach the disaster zone. While in Tibet, at least 3 people have died and more than 500 are missing there. We'll bring you all the latest live developments throughout the morning. Also, police name the woman and her 7-year-old niece who died in a house fire near Middlesbrough as Natalie MacDonald and Valentina Foster. And we'll look at whether Meta's $18 billion settlement will be a turning point leading to social media reform for young people. Plus, doctors question the rise in men using testosterone replacement therapy with the risk it may carry lifelong consequences. Hello, very good morning. Thanks for joining us here today. And we begin with the devastation in Nepal, where rescuers are desperately searching for survivors after extreme flooding hit the Nepal-Tibet border. This is, of course, a very fast-moving situation, and so the numbers are changing by the hour. Let's just show you the moment that the flash floods hit Nepal, described by those on the ground as something from the movies. A glacial collapse is now being blamed, not an earthquake, as had been originally thought. And we can now just show you some of the very latest footage that's come into us here at Sky, showing the flooding as it began. You can see those workers running away in an attempt to get to higher ground when they can see that wall of mud approaching. So they're clearly trying to get out of the path of that great river of mud. But it's moving at extraordinary speed and depth and breadth. So terrifying pictures, and obviously this would have been repeated down that valley in Nepal and on the other side of the border in Tibet as well, as people saw that wall of water. Someone described it as like liquid concrete heading very rapidly towards villages and towns. Well, let's just show you more of the early images that we're getting of the aftermath, which show the scale of destruction. In the affected areas, there are houses, vehicles, roads and trees all completely submerged or buried in mudslides. Well, these are the pictures from Tibet, where hundreds are also missing. And once again, this body of water has brought enormous devastation on both sides of the border. So let's get you up to date with how things are looking. And at least 177 people have died in Nepal, but that death toll is, I'm afraid, expected to rise. A huge search and rescue operation is underway for at least 826 people missing in Nepal, including 600 foreigners. 33 of those are Britons, and the others are from India, the United States, Australia and Canada. Chinese state media is reporting that 558 people are missing in Tibet, amongst those 260 foreign nationals, and the death toll there is 3. Well, our international correspondent John Sparks begins our coverage, and a warning that some viewers may find his report distressing.
It came with little warning. A great wave of water, a muddy deluge, forcing its way down a mountain valley. And many in this Nepalese town were caught unaware. My God, a house is collapsing, says one. These waters, unleashed by an avalanche of ice and rock, and the power of this flash flood is undeniable. The town's bridge ripped from its foundations, then consumed. Here, someone films from the back of a school bus, and we hear the sounds of curiosity and wonder give way to terror. On the street, bystanders begin to run, while the bus driver tries to accelerate from the scene.
I was at the terrace and the flood hit the top floor as well. It only subsided after an hour or so. My wife was already buried in the mudslide while we stayed on the terrace for safety. After 4 to 5 hours, I was rescued by a helicopter.
These images were captured from the border with neighbouring Tibet. We see people fleeing from a Chinese border post as a wall of water follows from behind. If a warning was provided, it was clearly inadequate. Moments later, the flood sweeps away all in its path, the equivalent, this, of a massive explosion.
The river has, completely left a trail of destruction like never seen before, as you can see, like never heard before. It has been a complete disaster. I've never seen in my life, something like this, a flood like this proportion. It starts in the Himalayas, and it's so great that it just washes everything away in the wake.
These river valleys form part of a key economic corridor linking Nepal with China, but they're vulnerable to floods and landslides and increasingly unpredictable as global temperatures rise. This disaster took place just before 9 a.m. in the district of Rasuwa, north of the capital, Kathmandu. It's clear that dozens of homes have been swept away, along with roads and power stations and other infrastructure. In their place, we see great swathes of mud carried down from higher elevations in the mountains. It is a reality demonstrated in satellite photos taken before and after the flood. In Nepal, the authorities have begun a major search and rescue operation, but rescue teams must contend with the conditions, and helicopters and airplanes have few places to land. Charity workers say vast areas are now inaccessible.
We have to start thinking about this right away. These people have lost their homes, they've lost everything they own. So the first, of course, they need just hygiene kits, they just need blankets, they just need the basics. But immediately after that, we need to start thinking about more permanent places for them to live.
Hundreds of people have been reported missing, with many believed to be foreign nationals, Indians on pilgrimage and Britons on holiday among their number. Nepalese officials are saying they fear major casualties in the aftermath of a great wall of water and mud. John Sparks, Sky News.
Well, let's get the latest now on the situation in Tibet. Our Asia correspondent Helen Ann Smith joins us now from Beijing. Helen Ann, is it clear how affected the area, the other side of the border in Tibet, has been by this huge mudslide?
I think, Anna, it's safe to say at the moment it's been very, very seriously affected. Similarly catastrophic, similarly terrifying, just similarly awful, frankly, to those pictures that we're seeing on the Nepalese side. I think the key difference in the coming hours and days and weeks is going to be that it is going to be a little bit more difficult for us as foreign media to really establish what is happening on the Tibet side. And that, of course, is because Tibet is one of the most politically sensitive places in China, arguably perhaps one of the most politically sensitive places in the world. And we as foreign journalists are sort of categorically not allowed access to it. The only way into Tibet is with a very organised and choreographed government tour. And that particular region where this terrible disaster has happened is actually even more strictly controlled. Even tourists there need a series of permits to get in, even Chinese tourists. So I think it's going to be difficult to establish the facts. We are going to be relying on Chinese state media and what the Chinese authorities are saying. But look, at the moment, based on those sources, the picture is absolutely grim, really bleak, hundreds missing, a large proportion of that foreign nationals, probably more likely the foreign nationals on the Tibet side, more likely to be perhaps Nepali workers, perhaps some on pilgrimage, but less sort of Western tourists because of those reasons. that I just outlined. And I just want to point as well to this Ajirong port, which is that big border crossing that we've seen those terrible images of the water washing through. That is Tibet's largest land port. And according to locals who have spoken to state media about it, there would have been possibly hundreds waiting to do customs checks to cross that border, because it is a big trade link between Nepal and Tibet. So there would likely be many people at that port at the time. And it's just worth saying, just to point to how sort of unstable this land is, there was actually a big mudslide at that very port in July 2025, so only just over a year ago. And that left 17 people missing at the time, and it washed away a bridge. And that port actually only fully reopened in January this year. So I just think that just gives you a bit of a sense of how sort of unstable the land is in that region. And look, that is something the Chinese authorities are really stressing. This is a deeply inaccessible and remote place. It is very mountainous. It is very steep. It is really, I wanted to stress how remote it is. If you think that it's some sort of 70 miles or so between where the Nepal disaster happened and Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, it is over 6 times as far from where the Tibet part of this disaster is to just the nearest sort of provincial capital of Lhasa, not the capital of China, but just that sort of slightly smaller city. So it really is going to be incredibly difficult, and state media are already saying that a lot of roads on the way to that disaster area are washed away, communications and electricity really unstable. State media also reporting this big sort of trail of vehicles trying to get there but struggling. So I think it is going to be a deeply difficult recovery operation there. There's also a lot more rain forecast as well, and the authorities saying that is making sort of rescue considerations very complicated and very dangerous. But look, I think it's important not to forget about the Tibet side, because as I say, the world's media will be descending on the Nepal side. It is difficult, stroke impossible for us to get to the Tibet side, but things are equally grim there.
Yes, indeed. I'm sure you're absolutely right. Helen Ann, thanks very much indeed. Helen Ann talking there about the challenges for the rescue operation. Well, a little bit earlier, we spoke to Mercy Corps Nepal Country Director Suraj Sigdal.
All the focus is on search and rescue. We still hope there are people who are in need of search and rescue. So the government authorities are putting all the efforts to find out if anyone is in need of rescue. So that's what's going on. And many of the people who are who needs the medical attention have been airlifted to the capital city of Nepal, Kathmandu, and they are being treated over here. And at the same time, the development partners, we are looking at closely doing the assessment, and we are getting ourselves ready to provide other relief support. But because of the flash flood, so it did not just wash out the houses, but it also took away the road access. Almost all the bridges are gone, and even the communication towers are being lost, and power. Electricity is also down in that area. So that has made the relief effort even difficult. So first thing that we are looking at is how to ensure that we have access to the people in need over there.
Well, joining us now is Professor of Glaciology at Kathmandu University, Dr. Rijan Bhaktha Kayastha. Very good morning to you. Thanks for talking to us. It's early days, but do you have a theory on how this might have happened? What started it?
Yeah, based on till now, we can say that the flood was generated from the massive ice avalanche from nearby glacier. And when the ice came down, on the downside, we have a debris-covered glacier with some superaggressive ponds, debris, and ice. So those all brought down with a huge speed, and then it all came down as a huge flood in the downstream. The another strong point is that there is a high gradient. So the surface topography is very steep. So the velocity was very high. Therefore, it took a massive flood in the downstream. Till now, I think those we have confirmed. And based on the satellite also, we confirmed that, yes, there was a huge ice avalanche from the upper side, which brought down.
And might climate change have played a part in this disaster, or is it too early to know that?
Yeah, but the main cause is, I think, that we have to say the rapid increase in air temperature. When the air temperature rises, then the ice melting will be very rapid. So that can break the glacier in the upstream part. And that was happened in yesterday's flood in this Raswa Gadi area.
Was there any warning of this?
No warning, because it was very remote area in the Tibetan side. From Nepal side also, we didn't have any village nearby the glacier, and we didn't have any early warning system. Only after reaching the flood at Raswa Gadi, where we have a bridge between China and Nepal, the people came to know that there was a huge flood. Then after that, there was a early warning systems communicated to the downstream people, and downstream people also got only 2-3 minutes. It was so high speed. The flood water was traveling with high speed, so they also received only 2-3 minutes. That was the main cause for higher casualties in the downstream.
Well, Dr. Rijan, back to Kayasta, we really appreciate your expertise this morning. Thank you so much for joining us on what has been a terrible 24 hours for your country. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, let's get a little bit more on this because Phoebe Southworth and our political correspondent Alex Rogers are here with me. First of all, Phoebe, get us up to date with what we know about the numbers missing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw those terrible images, didn't we, of the muddy water cascading around, and that's making the rescue incredibly difficult. But what we do know in terms of figures is around 1,000 people are missing. 341 of those are foreign nationals. And then of that group of foreign nationals, 33 are UK citizens. We know a little bit more now about the circumstances under which they went missing. So a number of mountain treks often take place between Nepal and Tibet. There's a popular pilgrimage route to Mount Kailash in Tibet. It's a sacred site for Hindus, very popular with tourists. We know that one mountain trekking company said that 12 of their British customers have gone missing, and that includes a 13-year-old girl. And then another company, the Trekkers Society, say that 9 UK nationals were part of their group and they are missing. That includes a 14-year-old boy. I can read a number just now from the Foreign Office who are offering any help to people who are in the area and need assistance. The number's 0207 008 5000, but we are awaiting more details on who exactly these people are, but a little bit more coming out now.
Yeah, and I know you'll get us up to date if you get more information. But Alex, what about the government? Have we heard from them?
Yes, so Andy Burnham was reacting to the horrible scenes that we've been seeing last night, saying that they were devastating and that his thoughts were with those affected, including the families and loved ones of British nationals missing in this tragedy. He said, "We will do everything we can to support British nationals impacted in the region and are in touch with the relevant authorities to offer support." And Pat McFadden, Government Minister, was also speaking to you recently, Anna, and you asked him what kind of financial support we'd be offering to Nepal after the US said they would give $500,000. And he didn't confirm a number, but he did say it's likely we're going to offer support and the UK will play its part in international efforts. So probably one to watch from what the government decides to do.
Yeah, indeed. It's still early days for all these things, isn't it? But thanks both very much indeed for getting us up to date. And we'll, of course, keep you across all the latest developments from Nepal and Tibet as we get them throughout the morning. In the meantime, though, let's check in on some of the other headlines around this morning. And a woman and her 7-year-old niece who died in a house fire near Middlesbrough have been named. 34-year-old Natalie MacDonald and Valentina Foster were killed in the blaze in Grangetown, under a mile from the site of Saturday's deadly wrong-way crash on the A66. Police are not ruling out a link between the two incidents and have arrested 2 men on suspicion of murder. The alleged mastermind of the September the 11th terror attacks will go on military trial in 2028. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed has been held at Guantanamo Bay, a US detention camp in Cuba, since 2006. The 61-year-old and 3 co-defendants face charges over the attacks which killed nearly 3,000 people. A British man has become the first person in the world to have a brain tumour removed using live AI-assisted surgery. Doctors at the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery in London used the tool to highlight which areas they needed to avoid. 48-year-old Rhys Hibbert says the operation has saved his eyesight. And the world's most valuable company, Nvidia, has posted a gross profit of $133.3 billion in the first half of the year, and that far exceeds Wall Street's expectations. Now, Andy Burnham has made it clear that improving mental health care is one of the government's priorities, announcing a major expansion of community support across the country. But there's still a long way to go, and former Care Minister Sir Norman Lamb is arguing that a mental health revolution is necessary to fix a broken system. Well, Sir Norman Lamb joins me now. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for coming in. First of all, give us a sense of the scale of the crisis as you see it.
Well, I really feel that the system just isn't working for people. So many families are failed by it. And in the course of writing this book, I've talked to a lot of people whose stories are now included in the book. And they're pretty harrowing, their experiences of the mental health system. I mean, for example, if you're detained under the Mental Health Act and placed into a psychiatric ward, the experience is pretty awful. I've been into very many of them, and they're not good places. And, you know, I always ask myself the question, if I was acutely unwell, would I want to be in here? And I know what the answer is. If it's not good enough for me, it's not good enough for anyone. Very little access to the outside world, to fresh air, to nature. And yet, for me, access to nature is critical for my sanity. So why deny it to the most unwell people? So I think the system isn't working effectively. The outcomes are not good. We're seeing a rising tide of mental distress, particularly amongst young people. Almost a doubling of the prescribing of antidepressants over the last decade. So something's not working, and it leaves a lot of families, and my own family has experienced this ourselves, loss of my oldest sister, Catherine, who took her own life as a result of, following the death of our mother. I think she fell into deep clinical depression. She was an inpatient for 10 weeks, but I sort of left me asking the question, what help did that really offer her? So...
I'm so sorry, I should say.
Well, yeah, thank you. But I mean, you know, I'm just conscious that so many families are affected in one way or another by mental health. And so we need to do better. And I suppose the exciting and very positive thing is that there are lots of examples from around this country, but also around the world, demonstrating that different approaches that are more humane, that are kinder, more optimistic for people, particularly intervening earlier, not rushing to diagnosis, not rushing to detain people.
So what does that intervention look like then? When you say intervening earlier, if it doesn't mean rushing to diagnosis, how does that look?
Well, I'll give you one example. And the results of a major trial are coming out today. It's called the Odessi trial. It's the biggest ever trial of its kind on something called open dialogue. It comes from the north of Finland. It supports people with psychosis. So instead of sort of the threat of detention and taking away all your liberty hanging over you, the approach is to involve the person and their family and friends in open conversation. And this is a way of sort of getting perhaps to the root of what might have caused the distress in the first place. And in that way, then, the healing can start. And Russell Razak, the psychiatrist, brilliant man who sort of has led the whole initiative in the UK, he came to see me when I was minister in 2014. Today, we have the outcome, bizarrely, on the same day as my book is published. And it shows that pursuing this sort of approach, building relationships with people, continuity of care, so not shunting people from one team to another, which is what happens at the moment, 3 times less likely to be admitted to a psychiatric hospital. That's a dramatic improvement, because every admission is a traumatic experience for the individual and their family. And I think back to Catherine and her experience and, you know, being locked up with perhaps 18 other people in a fairly dismal place.
And those other people in a very distressed state
too. Exactly right. There's no evidence that this helps recovery.
We're talking a little bit about how you deal with this big problem, but why do we have this big problem in the first place? Why is there apparently a growing issue of mental health problems amongst people, especially young, as you say?
Well, I think increasingly we're sort of beginning to understand that mental distress and ill health, in a way, are the problems and illnesses of our society. You know, we live often in quite a stressed environment. I think particularly for young people growing up, it's pretty challenging and difficult and complex. A lot of people in their early 20s, 30s can be very isolated in the middle of an urban area. Here in London, there will be lots of people living very lonely lives. So I think we need to have a much greater focus on these social causes of ill health, reconnecting people, rebuilding communities. And I give some examples of wonderful enlightened approaches in the book, demonstrating that if you intervene earlier, rebuild connections with nature, with each other, with music, art, the sort of things that, you know, make us human beings, you can make a real difference.
And we talk a lot about social media on this show and its effects, and we've seen Meta just yesterday reaching a settlement over the issue of protecting young people and introducing measures. Do you have a view on the impact of social media on young people's mental health?
We can't carry on as we are. I mean, that's the bottom line. And you know, there is an accumulation of evidence. We don't yet have a perfect understanding of what's going on, but I believe in the precautionary principle. And I was talking recently to a head teacher who said that the indication of a ban on social media is make it easier for parents to navigate their way through very difficult issues. But I don't think that in itself is enough. There needs to be rules on the algorithms that drive, you know, repetitive and almost compulsive behaviours online. We're all guilty of it, if we're honest.
Absolutely.
But I think it's particularly damaging for young people.
So, Norman Nairn, fascinating to hear from you
Pleasure.
this morning. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
Such an important subject. Thank
you.
And, of course, if you're affected by any of the issues that we've been talking about, help is available from the Samaritans 24 hours a day. You can call them on 116 123 or visit samaritans.org. So let's get more on that settlement I just was mentioning that Meta has agreed to pay. Our science and technology editor Tom Clark has this.
It's a landmark settlement, Meta agreeing to pay up to $18 billion to US states and make significant changes to its platforms for teens. But will it make them safer? The case brought in California by 29 US states alleged the owner of Facebook and Instagram misrepresented the harm its apps caused children and used their data illegally. Meta faced damages of up to $1.4 trillion. In the settlement, Meta denied any wrongdoing and says it will pay states between $13 and $18 billion over 10 years.
There was potential liability of over $1 trillion for Meta. And I think that given the way the trial was starting out, that might have been a clear indication to the company that this is a time to really think about settling.
It will also make significant changes to its products, including improved age verification, a 2-hour screen limit for teen accounts controlled by a parent, a nighttime block between midnight and 6 a.m, a ban on displaying likes and reactions, as well as options to switch off autoplay and algorithmic recommendations. One important detail, Meta will pay the higher settlement if rivals like TikTok and YouTube commit to similar safeguards. This settlement could have industry-wide impacts. For now, proposed changes only apply to Instagram and Facebook in the US, but the settlement suggests a direction of travel that extends here too.
At least parts of Europe are going as far, or if not further, than even the settlement goes. So you're seeing a lot of pretty stringent requirements on social media, particularly as it relates to minors.
But will it make a difference? Teens in Australia quickly found ways to get around its under-16 social media ban. Campaigners hope this case might have forced Meta and other tech firms to design products safe for children. Limiting access and opt-out options don't remove the content and features that they say are harming kids.
Tom Clark there. Do stay with us. Still to come, we're going to have more on the devastation in Nepal and get more reaction from the country itself.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
So let's just update you on our top story here this morning. And rescuers are desperately searching for survivors after extreme flooding hit the Nepal-Tibet border. At least 165 people have died in Nepal, but that number is expected to rise significantly. And a huge search and rescue operation is currently underway for at least 826 people missing in Nepal, including 600 foreigners. And here is some of the latest footage that's come into us here at Sky, showing the flooding as it began. In these pictures, you can see the workers running away. They're trying to get to higher ground as they can see that wall of water and mud approaching at great speed. Well, of those unaccounted for, 33 are Britons. The others are from India, the United States, Australia and Canada. A glacial collapse is being blamed, not the earthquake that was originally thought. Meanwhile, these are the pictures coming into us from Tibet. Chinese state media is reporting that 558 people are missing there. Amongst those were 260 foreign nationals, and the death toll there is currently 3. And we hope to go live to Kathmandu shortly to get the latest on the situation there. But in the meantime, let's turn to some of the other stories from back here. And Testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT, has been labelled game-changing by some men. But doctors are concerned that social media is pushing people towards its use unnecessarily and say that it can come with long life consequences. Sky News' Barnaby Papadopoulos has been investigating.
I've got the actual prescription, testosterone itself.
Ben is one of a growing number of men injecting testosterone every week.
This has been game-changing for me, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Many say this drug has changed their lives, but some of Britain's top doctors are worried.
It causes high blood pressure, it makes your cholesterol worse. I've got no doubt that if everyone took it in the world, then you would actually hasten the demise of many men.
Masculinity is the resistance.
Is social media convincing men that testosterone levels are key to understanding masculinity?
If you weren't getting tested and you weren't taking testosterone replacement therapy, that you weren't this real man.
Others say this is a condition long under-researched, one finally getting the attention it deserves.
The best single indicator of a man's health is his testosterone level.
So is testing and treating our testosterone levels really the key to improving our health? Or is the wellness industry selling men solutions to a problem that, for many, doesn't actually exist?
And you can watch Barnaby's full piece on Sky News throughout the day, but he is here to tell us a little bit more. And really interesting, this, and it has sparked quite a big debate, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just explain what testosterone is to start. It's a hormone, both men and women have it. But in men, it's a hormone that's responsible for correct sexual function, as well as things like muscle mass and having enough energy. And in some men, they can't produce enough naturally. Sometimes it declines slightly with age, and not having enough can cause sexual dysfunction, and it can also cause tiredness and even depression and anxiety. But there is, as you say, a bit of a debate here, because there's a debate over what low testosterone actually is and who needs treatment for it. Because some doctors would say that having low testosterone is something that is really rare, and the treatments for it are quite invasive. They can cause infertility. They stop the body producing sperm naturally, so it can cause infertility. And if you get them from a private clinic, they're pretty expensive. So men are often paying even £200 a month in some cases for testosterone replacement therapy. But there are doctors on the other side of the debate who say, actually, far more men than actually we might think are struggling with low testosterone. And they say that low testosterone is causing depression, it's causing tiredness. And some of the men we've spoken to in this piece got on replacement therapies and said their lives were literally transformed. And they believe that transformation is worth the cost and worth some of the side effects. So it is a debate that's dividing the medical community. The concern I think that some people have is that a lot of this is being pushed out on social media. And there's a bit of a dark side to this. Some influencers, some social media accounts suggesting that low testosterone is linked to this sort of broader crisis in masculinity. If you don't have enough testosterone, you're not a real man. So there are some concerns there. And this is a conversation that is now being had at the highest levels. Just last month, we saw the US Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, announce that all US service members over the age of 30 are going to be tested for their testosterone. Some doctors think that that's quite a mad suggestion. They think it's unnecessary. He says it's going to improve the military's effectiveness. So it is a debate that is continuing. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. The men's health market is absolutely booming at the moment. There is a lot of money to be made. It's a big conversation on social media. And of course, that full piece will be on our YouTube page from about midday today.
Yeah, and we'll get more of the debate in that, of course. Really interesting. Barnaby, thanks very much indeed. Let's check on the weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, it looks pretty unsettled into the bank holiday weekend, I'm afraid, with thundery downpours bringing the risk of localised flooding. But the storm's extent and distribution are pretty uncertain at this stage. Heavy thundery rain will push north across England, Wales and the southeast of Ireland this morning. Hail, frequent lightning and gusty winds will be additional hazards, but sunny spells and a few showers will follow to the south. Elsewhere, it'll be largely fine, bar the odd shower, mainly over eastern Scotland, and it's going to be pretty warm and humid as well.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Now, for 3.5 years, bloody civil war has raged in Sudan. The United Arab Emirates has been accused of backing the Rapid Support Forces, the brutal militia battling the Sudanese government. Well, Sudan's ambassador to the UK has told our international affairs editor Dominic Waghorn that Britain has an important role to play in ending that support and the war itself.
Go to places like the Sudanese Community Centre in West London, and the war in Sudan is far from overlooked. It's on their minds every day.
It's sad because we are cousins. To be fair, Janjaweed and the other side, they're all cousins. Wow. It's like even brothers. It's so sad. This is unimaginable.
Falafel restaurateur Imad has family in Sudan threatened by the war. Like many, there's little doubt in his mind it's being made much worse by outside powers interfering in his country.
I think it's very serious, yeah, and the war should finish soon. If Britain and America stop supporting United Arab Emirates, because they are the main supplier. They wanted the gold, everything from Sudan.
The United Arab Emirates is accused of arming the RSF, the militia fighting the Sudanese government in this devastating war, in return for lucrative access to the country's gold supplies. Sudan's ambassador to the UK says Britain has a special role and should rein in the UAE's support of the RSF militia.
And we have much in common, and we expect them to help us ending this war. This war cannot be ended without preventing the militia from being armed and being provided with the capability of continuing committing atrocities and threatening the lives and the well-being of our people.
All sides in this war, of course, are being supported by other countries in what's become a proxy conflict in a battle to assert control in the region. But the United Arab Emirates has been the focus of criticism over its alleged role. Diplomats here at the United Arab Emirates Embassy have told us that they have consistently condemned atrocities committed by all warring parties and stressed the need to ensure accountability for violations of international humanitarian law. For more than 3 years, the UAE has denied it has any military involvement whatsoever in the war in Sudan. The problem is the evidence keeps stacking up, suggesting that's not true. The war is thought to have killed hundreds of thousands of civilians and forced as many as 14 million to flee their homes. Without concerted action from outside powers, not empty words and meddling, their suffering will only deepen. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News.
Stay with us. We're going to be taking you through the morning papers once again in just a moment with political correspondent at The Independent, Millie Kirk.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
There seems to be some sort of a shooting, what appear to be shots fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
It was a jam-packed interview. I'll tell you what he told me and I'll explain why you can't hear the call.
100 days in and back with the grassroots of this MAGA movement.
Feels a little bit like he's a king, not a president.
He is a king.
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too.
These immigration rates?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
I'm observing what you're doing.
This post of Trump, it's a big shift. It's very positive.
Have you seen what Donald Trump's been up to in the Rose Garden, in the East Wing?
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Middle East correspondent.
We've just entered Gaza. The vista out there is complete destruction.
I'll always remember going into Gaza City during the war. All around us was destruction and the sounds of battle. I witnessed the scars of the October the 7th attacks, burnt out homes, bullet holes in walls and bloodstains on the floor.
People were murdered, people were kidnapped.
The Israelis insist that many of these prisoners are terrorists, but here the Palestinians consider them a blend of freedom fighters and political prisoners. These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Let's return to our top story and the situation in Nepal, where authorities say at least 177 people have died and more than 1,300 people are missing after those flash floods. Currently, a glacial collapse is being blamed, and the debris flow that caused catastrophic impacts downstream. Well, joining us now is the Professor of Climate Science at Tribhuvan University, Binod Bawadi. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for talking to us there from Nepal. First of all, I want to get your reaction to what's happened. Are you shocked by the scenes that you've seen? And give us a sense of the kind of environmental conditions that might have allowed this to happen.
Thank you. The result, which we had a massive flood yesterday, is not only the effect of the day only. What is there is the ice avalanches affect the Linden River, which is from the around 15 kilometers away from the Nepal-China border. When it ice avalanches in the river, then it multiplies, it blocks for some time, and it break out, that multiply the amount, volume of water in the river, and which affect in the downstream, mainly in the cross-border area of the Timure from Nepal-China border and the downstream. This, what the official, the declaration is still remains the cause. What are the major causes that makes it happen is still not understand clearly. But what we believe is it is the impact of the climate change which is happening since the long run, that the avalanches break it out. That is the major cause. And right now the government of Nepal is working in the rescue and relief.
Yeah, and a very difficult rescue operation because so much of the infrastructure has been damaged. Professor Binod Bawadi, thank you so much for joining us this morning and giving your take on what's happened there, on this terrible disaster that's hit Nepal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Let's take a look now at the morning's newspapers. Here with me to go through some of the front pages and stories inside is the political correspondent at The Independent, Millie Kirk. Welcome back, Millie. And we're actually going to kick off with Nepal, aren't we? Hearing there from that professor in Kathmandu talking about what might have led to this happening. But the paper's full of pictures of the aftermath of this flood of mud that has wiped out villages and towns. You've picked out one of the inside stories inside the Telegraph.
Yeah, so I mean, at the top of the story, we're seeing more images of the destruction. And even then, just looking at the screen there, the images of the mud and the water crashing down is just absolutely shocking. It looks like a viral social media clip rather than something that really happened yesterday and overnight today. It's just deeply, deeply shocking. Every time I check the news, that death toll and missing toll appears to be rising. I think now we're at 1,300 missing, which is just such a huge amount, and it appears to be going up every few minutes. Even.
Yeah, and the experts talking about the topography of this mountainous region where it happened. it involves incredibly narrow valleys, so you get the height of the water, because of its volume, is incredibly high. And then when it spreads out lower down the valley, it has gone to a width, I read somewhere, of 40 to 50 kilometres width. So there are towns and villages affected, obviously, in quite a broad area. And I think we only really know a fraction of the kind of damage it's done at this stage. And the problem is that so much of the infrastructure has been damaged. For many of these areas, the only way to get there now is helicopter at present, while they try to work on improving the situation. But as you say, early days, and the newspaper, sadly, already pretty out of date, because the situation is changing so quickly. Let's move on, shall we, to domestic matters. And we're talking about an article that's picked out in The Guardian here, and this is about energy bills, because yesterday we had the energy price cap announced, and showing a rise. Our energy bills, the average bill will go up from October.
Yeah, so this story effectively has government sources saying that we're not expecting to see any more targeted help between now and October. October's when the price cap will rise, and obviously we're going to be seeing more people turning their heating on as winter bites. So regardless of the price cap, energy bills are likely to go up over winter anyway. And effectively, this is sort of Burnham's team and sources briefing out that we won't be seeing any more help. He already, as soon as he came in, he announced that VAT would be removed on electricity bills, which will, I think it will decrease bills by about £45 a year, so it's not a huge amount.
And the energy price cap is expecting to put the average household bill up by about £60, so that price cap already wiping out the help.
Yeah.
The government's saying that they're just trying to give people breathing space for now, though, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think any movement is always helpful. I mean, £45 could be the difference between sort of eating 1 month and not, but it's equally, in the grand scheme of things, isn't very much when it comes to the amount that energy bills will increase by. I think also this sums up how much of a difficult position the government's in. The cost of living crisis has been going on for quite a long time. The public finances...
And the Iran war has been a major factor in energy prices, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, with the war in the Middle East, energy prices are going up massively. Economic growth is stalling. The government really has very little money to play with when it comes to handing out support for the cost of living crisis. It seems like Andy Burnham at the moment is doing everything he can, but obviously we haven't seen a budget yet. So there'll be some difficult choices to make when it comes to whether or not we raise taxes, make cuts, and how we'll fund any increases to support when it comes to the cost of living crisis.
Yeah, indeed. And there'll be a huge amount of pressure on the new Chancellor to do something about it, to ease the burden on people. We're talking about Andy Burnham again in the next story. This is in the Telegraph, and this is his pledge to end rough sleeping for Christmas, by Christmas. They're quoting a charity boss saying that it's ambitious, or too ambitious. What do they exactly...
Yeah, so we've got Andy Preston, who's the chairman of the CEO Sleep Out charity. He said the strategy is unworkable because Britain doesn't have enough housing, and the plans to boost Britain's housing stock aren't ambitious enough. So this week, Andy Burnham said he wants to build 70,000 social and affordable homes in the next 10 years. Mr Preston has pointed out that that's about 7,000 homes a year, and it's just not ambitious enough. And he's saying that unless we do more to build more homes, the long-term plan to end rough sleeping, which was Andy Burnham's his first mission when he entered office, if he wants to do that, he's going to have to be more ambitious, is effectively what this charity is saying. And I think it shows just how ambitious that pledge is. He was standing on the steps of Downing Street. He said, my first order is to get to work on ending homelessness. It's obviously a very noble mission. It's a great mission, but it's deeply ambitious. It's one that he also tried to do as Greater Manchester Mayor. He faced a bit of criticism when he came into Downing Street, with people saying that you've pledged to do that before, and it worked for a bit, but the numbers came back up again. So he didn't make a massive dent on homelessness figures.
And their overall home building target is 1.5 million houses, isn't it? But the suggestion is that the pace they're going at the moment certainly is too slow to reach that target. They say that will pick up. And the number of social housing houses, that first tranche has been announced. I think they do plan more further down the line. But again, questions over whether it can be done quickly enough to make a difference. Let's move on to a story about diets. It's an intriguing headline. I'll admit I read the article, so you'll have to tell me about it. It says diet's too feminine to help men get slim.
I found this story really interesting because, so the story is effectively about how men are apparently struggling to lose weight through traditional diets because they're seen as too feminine. So they're sort of aimed at women.
Men think they're too feminine.
Men think they're too feminine. So this is effectively NHS figures talking about 70% of men classed as overweight. But there's research from Anglia Ruskin University which interviewed men aged 30 and over about their experience of weight loss programmes. And effectively, men are often associating dieting with sort of feminine aspirations. I found it really interesting. Well, A, what's the problem with that? But also, I think it really shows how tragically a lot of diets are just aimed at women, and it speaks to the sort of pressure on women to lose weight generally. And I think that obviously there is an issue here about obesity and being overweight, but also there's an issue with the amount of pressure on women to lose weight and to look a certain way, whether it's through social media or advertising for weight loss pills, or there is just this immense pressure on women, which apparently makes dieting a feminine pursuit. And
do you think that's sort of social media or the press generally, that if you're giving advice, you think it tends to be more geared towards women?
Yeah, I think women, I mean, obviously men suffer from eating disorders too. There is obviously pressure across society to look a certain way, but I think that women are certainly more targeted than men and suffer from it more. And I think that's always been the way, whether it's, I think social media's probably amplified it, but if you look at, I mean, magazines from the 70s and 80s and 90s, you had bizarre diets for how to lose weight by eating, I don't know, a grapefruit a day or like... And I think that it's always been the way that women have faced a lot of pressure to look a certain way. And I think this story is just a really interesting byproduct of the way that men and women are under different societal pressures, men to be masculine and women to be as small as they can.
Yeah, really interesting. Finally, we've got about a minute, but let's just reflect on Wes Streeting's comments. They're picked out in The Guardian.
Yeah, it's Wes Streeting, the new-ish Defence Secretary, talking about how he's had an upsurge in homophobia since he was appointed Defence Secretary. And obviously until 2000, gay men and lesbians were banned from the military. And there was a huge amount of harm done as a result of that. And Wes Streeting is just effectively talking about how his experiences have been pretty damning. And it shows that homophobia is very much still alive, especially when it comes to Britain's armed forces. When I saw that Wes Streeting was appointed Defence Secretary, I thought I was sort of interested in the political implications. It didn't even cross my mind that he's a gay man. But I imagine that if you are a gay man yourself, I think he was speaking about how someone in the MOD who was gay came up to him and said how sort of wonderful it was to see a gay man in leading the MOD.
Really interesting. We're actually out of time, Millie, but our sympathies to him for getting abused. And thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Millie.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Hello and a very good morning. It's 9 o'clock. This is Mornings with me, Anna Jones. Here's how things are looking. Devastation in Nepal, hundreds killed and many more missing after flash floods wreak havoc in the region. The search for survivors. More than 30 British tourists are amongst those unaccounted for, with rescuers struggling to reach the disaster zone. Well, in Tibet, at least 3 people have died and more than 500 are missing there. Well, we'll bring you all the live developments throughout the morning. Also today, police named the woman and her 7-year-old niece who died in a house fire near Middlesbrough as Natalie MacDonald and Valentina Foster. Also, we'll be looking at whether Meta's $18 billion settlement will be a turning point leading to social media reform for young people. Plus, doctors question the rise in men using testosterone replacement therapy with the risk that it may carry lifelong consequences. Hello, very good morning. Thanks for joining us here today. And we begin with the devastation in Nepal, where rescuers are desperately searching for survivors after extreme flooding hit the Nepal-Tibet border. This, of course, is a really fast-moving situation, so the numbers are changing by the hour. But let's show you the moment that the flash floods hit Nepal, described by those on the ground as something from the movies. A glacial collapse is being blamed, not an earthquake, as was originally thought. And let's just show you some of the very latest footage that's come into us here at Sky, showing the flooding as it began. And in these images, you can see workers running away in an attempt to get to higher ground. You can see that wall of water approaching there at the back of the picture, and the workers desperately keen to get high, the water incredibly deep and far-reaching and moving at great pace. Well, the scale of the destruction is enormous. In the affected areas, there are houses, vehicles, roads and trees all completely submerged or buried in the mudslides. And these are some of the pictures that we've got from Tibet, where hundreds are also missing. Once again, this body of water has brought enormous devastation on both sides of the border there. So authorities are racing to find the more than 1,000 people who are missing across Nepal and Tibet. And the area is incredibly challenging. Emergency crews and aid workers are working in tough terrain to try to reach those remote villages, which are with a lot of the infrastructure damaged. So here are how things are looking right now. At least 177 people have died in Nepal, but that figure is, I'm afraid, expected to rise. At least 826 people are missing in Nepal, including 600 foreigners. 33 of those are Britons. The others are from India, the United States, Australia and Canada. Chinese state media is reporting that 558 people are missing in Tibet, and amongst those are 260 foreign nationals. The number of people who have died there is 3. Well, our international correspondent John Sparks begins our coverage, and a warning that some viewers may find his report distressing.
It came with little warning. A great wave of water, a muddy deluge, forcing its way down a mountain valley. And many in this Nepalese town were caught unaware. My God, a house is collapsing, says one. These waters, unleashed by an avalanche of ice and rock, and the power of this flash flood is undeniable. The town's bridge ripped from its foundations, then consumed. Here, someone films from the back of a school bus, and we hear the sounds of curiosity and wonder give way to terror. On the street, bystanders begin to run, while the bus driver tries to accelerate from the scene.
I was at the terrace and the flood hit the top floor as well. It only subsided after an hour or so. My wife was already buried in the mudslide while we stayed on the terrace for safety. After 4 to 5 hours, I was rescued by a helicopter.
These images were captured from the border with neighbouring Tibet. We see people fleeing from a Chinese border post as a wall of water follows from behind. If a warning was provided, it was clearly inadequate. Moments later, the flood sweeps away all in its path, the equivalent, this, of a massive explosion.
The river has, completely left a trail of destruction like never seen before. As you can see, like never heard before. It has been a complete disaster, and I have never seen in my life, something like this, a flood like this proportion. It starts in the Himalayas, and it's so great that it just washes everything away in the wake.
These river valleys form part of a key economic corridor linking Nepal with China, but they're vulnerable to floods and landslides, and increasingly unpredictable as global temperatures rise. This disaster took place just before 9 a.m. in the district of Rasuwa, north of the capital, Kathmandu. It's clear that dozens of homes have been swept away, along with roads and power stations and other infrastructure. In their place, we see great swathes of mud carried down from higher elevations in the mountains. It is a reality demonstrated in satellite photos taken before and after the flood. In Nepal, the authorities have begun a major search and rescue operation, but rescue teams must contend with the conditions, and helicopters and airplanes have few places to land. Charity workers say vast areas are now inaccessible.
We have to start thinking about this right away. These people have lost their homes, they've lost everything they own. So the first, of course, they need just hygiene kits, they just need blankets, they just need the basics. But immediately after that, we need to start thinking about more permanent places for them to live.
Hundreds of people have been reported missing, with many believed to be foreign nationals, Indians on pilgrimage and Britons on holiday among their number. Nepalese officials are saying they fear major casualties in the aftermath of a great wall of water and mud. John Sparks, Sky News.
Well, our Asia correspondent Helen Ann Smith has the latest on the situation in Tibet.
I think, Anna, it's safe to say at the moment it's been very, very seriously affected. Similarly catastrophic, similarly terrifying, just similarly awful, frankly, to those pictures that we're seeing on the Nepalese side. I think the key difference in the coming hours and days and weeks is going to be that it is going to be a little bit more difficult for us as foreign media to really establish what is happening on the Tibet side. And that, of course, is because Tibet is one of the most politically sensitive places in China, arguably perhaps one of the most politically sensitive places in the world. And we as foreign journalists are sort of categorically not allowed access to it. The only way into Tibet is with a very organised and choreographed government tour. And that particular region where this terrible disaster has happened is actually even more strictly controlled. Even tourists there need a series of permits to get in, even Chinese tourists. So I think it's going to be difficult to establish the facts. We are going to be relying on Chinese state media and what the Chinese authorities are saying. But look, at the moment, based on those sources, the picture is absolutely grim, really bleak, hundreds missing, a large proportion of that foreign nationals, probably more likely the foreign nationals on the Tibet side, more likely to be perhaps Nepali workers, perhaps some on pilgrimage, but less sort of Western tourists because of those reasons that I just outlined. And I just want to point as well to this Ajirong port, which is that big border crossing that we've seen those terrible images of the water washing through. That is Tibet's largest land port. And according to locals who have spoken to state media about it, there would have been possibly hundreds waiting to do customs checks to cross that border, because it is a big trade link between Nepal and Tibet. So there would likely be many people at that port at the time. And it's just worth saying, just to point to how sort of unstable this land is, there was actually a big mudslide at that very port in July 2025, so only just over a year ago. And that left 17 people missing at the time, and it washed away a bridge. And that port actually only fully reopened in January this year. So I just think that just gives you a bit of a sense of how sort of unstable the land is in that region. And look, that is something the Chinese authorities are really stressing. This is a deeply inaccessible and remote place. It is very mountainous. It is very steep. It is really, I wanted to stress how remote it is. If you think that it's some sort of 70 miles or so between where the Nepal disaster happened and Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, it is over 6 times as far from where the Tibet part of this disaster is to just the nearest sort of provincial capital of Lhasa. Not the capital of China, but just that sort of slightly smaller city. So it really is going to be incredibly difficult, and state media are already saying that a lot of roads on the way to that disaster area are washed away, communications and electricity really unstable. State media also reporting this big sort of trail of vehicles trying to get there but struggling. So I think it is going to be a deeply difficult recovery operation there. There's also a lot more rain forecast as well, and the authorities saying that is making sort of rescue considerations very complicated and very dangerous. But look, I think it's important not to forget about the Tibet side, because as I say, the world's media will be descending on the Nepal side. It is difficult, stroke impossible for us to get to the Tibet side, but things are equally grim there.
Helen Ann Smith in Beijing. Well, joining me now is Simon Cook, who's a geoscientist specialising in mountain environments. Thanks so much for chatting to us this morning. We really appreciate it. The pictures are horrific, and this wall of water, when we see what we'd normally describe as a flash flood, we think of heavy rain preceding it, but that wasn't the case in this situation, was it? So how unusual a situation is this, and what's your take on what's caused it?
Yeah, I mean, what we think has happened is that part of a glacier, the lower part of a glacier tongue, up at about 5,000 metres high up in the Nepalese Himalaya, has broken off. And that ice has then cascaded, fallen about 1,300 metres into the valley below. And it's probably mixed with lots of other dead and decaying bits of glacier ice and debris and boulders, which are very common in these kinds of environments. And that has sort of added, if you like, to the mass of material that's moved downstream. And so you've ended up with this catastrophic debris flow, essentially, of really sediment-rich floodwater that then moves down valley. How common are these events? I think you asked. We've seen a number of these events in recent years. So there was a very similar event back in 2021 in the Indian Himalaya at a place called Chamoli, where, again, ice and rock fell from a very high peak, about 1,800 metres into the valley below, and I think killed about 200 people and destroyed 2 hydropower stations. We've seen just last year in the Swiss Alps, the village of Blatten was buried by a glacier collapse. So there's been a number of these events in recent years, unfortunately.
And does the topography of that region make the impact all the worse? I mean, we've got incredibly high mountains and deep, narrow valleys. Does that mean that communities are even more vulnerable?
Yeah, so I mean, you've got as you say, you've got very steep, very high topography. So you've got, lots of, glacier ice potentially becoming more unstable in a warming climate, sitting high above the valleys below. So there's a lot of potential energy there that can be converted into a flood if any of that ice falls off these mountainsides. And then it's channeled through, as you're showing on the screen right now, these pretty narrow river valley. And so you're sort of getting this funneling effect of all of this, these boulders and debris and water and bits of buildings that are then barreling along these relatively narrow river valleys. And there's really, in some instances, very little hope for escape, as some of the other images, the awful images that you've shown already.
And compounded by the fact that there seems to have been so little warning. Would there be any warning of a major event like this?
I don't know that there was any specific early warning system in place for this region. I mean, the images that you're showing right now with this building being completely enveloped by this flood wave, that's just a few kilometres downstream from where this ice avalanche took place. And I mean, I think even if an early warning system had been available in that particular location, it would have given them a matter of minutes. And you need a network of meteorological stations to monitor whether there's been heavy rainfall or high temperatures that could have loosened things up in these cold environments. You need time-lapse cameras. You need an array of seismometers that can measure seismic shaking. And then you need that information needs to be verified and then sent to some sort of warning, presumably through people's mobile phones. So again, you then need good cell phone coverage as well. So in that particular instance, sort of closer to the source of this ice avalanche, that they probably would have just had a few minutes. Further downstream, an early warning system may be more helpful in terms of giving people fair warning and opportunity to evacuate. But these are very challenging environments, as you mentioned, and early warning systems are relatively rare, and they need a lot of investment. They need a lot of maintenance and training. And I'm not sure that's the case in many locations. And of course, this is a vast mountain range with lots of potentially dangerous hanging glaciers and lakes that could burst and landslides and so on.
Indeed. Well, Dr. Simon Cook, we appreciate you talking to us this morning and giving your analysis on this tragedy in Nepal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get a few more details on this. We've got Phoebe Southworth and our political correspondent Alex Rogers both with me now. And Phoebe, you can fill us in a little bit on those missing.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the figures, we know that more than 1,000 people are unaccounted for at this point. 466 are foreign nationals. Of that group, we then have 33 UK citizens. And we do know a little bit about that group and who is missing and what kind of age they are. Between Nepal and Tibet, there is a very popular pilgrimage route to Mount Kailash. And many people make that crossing, many tourists. We know that 2 different companies who were hosting a number of tourists, including Britons, have said that between them, 21 customers have gone missing, and that includes a 13-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy. We don't know much more yet about the rest of these groups, but we know they're kind of in their 40s, 50s. So slightly older adults, but we're awaiting a bit more detail on that. The Foreign Office is obviously involved and they are offering assistance to anyone that might need help. And there is a number that people can call, which I'll just read out now. It's 0207 008 5000. So we are looking for more detail on exactly who they are, but it looks like very young children and teenagers could very well emerge as victims of this.
Yeah. Desperate for families and loved ones of those people missing. Phoebe, thank you. Alex, talk to us about what we've heard from the UK government this morning.
Well, we had some words from Andy Burnham, the Prime Minister, just expressing his condolences for those caught up in this, saying that the scenes are devastating and that his thoughts are with all those affected, including the families and loved ones of British nationals missing in this tragedy. He goes on to say, we will do everything we can to support British nationals impacted in the region and are in touch with the relevant authorities to offer support. Annie, you're also speaking to Pat McFadden, the Work and Pensions Secretary, asking what kind of financial support we'd be giving after the US announced it would be giving $500,000. And he didn't confirm a number, but he did say that the UK will play its part. And he also pointed to a tweet from the Foreign Secretary, Ed Miliband. I'll read some of that out as well. He said, I spoke to the Nepali Foreign Minister, Shisa Kanal, this morning and expressed Britain's solidarity and deepest condolences for the disaster that has occurred. I thanked him for the efforts of the Nepali government in support of British nationals in the area. I also offered financial search and rescue and other help to aid the disaster response. Above all, I told him we will do everything we can to help Nepal in its hour of need. So I think we'll probably expect more from the government in terms of the financial support that we're going to offer.
Yeah, indeed. We'll watch and bring people up to date with that when it comes, if and when it comes. Alex and Phoebe, thank you both very much indeed. And just to let you know that at 9 o'clock tonight, we're going to have a special programme here on Sky News covering all the events in Nepal and Tibet. It'll have all the latest from on the ground, as well as a look at what caused this tragedy. That's at 9 o'clock tonight. Time now to speak to the Conservatives. Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Helen Whately joins me now. A very good morning to you, Helen Whately, and I'll get on to domestic issues in a moment, but I just want to get your reflections, first of all, on this appalling disaster that's occurring in Nepal.
Oh, it's absolutely awful to see the scale of the destruction and many lives lost. So many people are missing, but sadly, I expect we will see, therefore, the number of people who've died go up. So horrific to see. We clearly, as a country, have a really long-term and strong relationship with Nepal, the Gurkhas who are part of our armed forces. And so I'm glad to see that the government has said that we will support Nepal as best we can, for instance, with the rescue efforts, so that as few people do die as part of this awful disaster.
Indeed, and we will be speaking to a former Gurkha actually later this hour on Sky News. Let's move on to other issues, to domestic affairs, because today the government has been talking about the first cohort of young people who are getting jobs through their jobs guarantee scheme. Something to be welcomed, I imagine.
Well, I don't want to see young people sitting around unemployed, stuck at home. But the problem really here is that the government has created youth unemployment at an enormous scale. We have the highest level of youth unemployment for over a decade. We now, under this government, have over 1 million young people not in education, employment or training, over 1 million NEETs. And if you talk to businesses, businesses will tell you that because the government has put up taxes on them, the jobs tax, because the government has increased red tape on them, the Employment Rights Act, they're now hiring fewer people, and particularly hiring fewer young people. So the government is doing enormous harm to the job opportunities for young people. They are creating a lost generation. So though I welcome work experience, there is a huge irony in the fact that the government has put up taxes on businesses so they can't afford to employ people, and they're now spending some of that money from those taxes on work experience schemes and job placements for young people. What young people tell me they really want is they want real job opportunities so they can get ahead and pursue the jobs and careers that they want.
Well, in answer to that, I put some of those points to Pat McFadden earlier on today, and he said that they were offering hiring incentives to employers who take on unemployed young people of around £3,000. And he also said that business don't pay national insurance contributions for employees under 21. So they are making a real difference as far as those particular issues are concerned, they would say.
Of course, Labour would say that, but the problem is always their response to a problem is to tax people more and then spend more.
But they're saying that they're offering relief for employees under 21.
Yes, so there is no national insurance at less than 21, but there is and has been an increase in national insurance above that age group. And overall, Labour has put up the bill for employment on businesses by a huge amount. So talk to any business, they will give you really massive figures. Obviously, how big it is depends on the size of the business. But many businesses are now paying millions more in tax and national insurance on their staff. So they can't afford to recruit people. And that hits young people who are out of the workplace hardest. There are few, you can see this in the vacancy numbers. So there are tens of thousands fewer vacancies in the economy than back at the time of the general election. So there are fewer job opportunities. As I say, the government has genuinely killed these job opportunities with their taxes and with their regulation. So what they should be doing is backing businesses so businesses can hire people, not doing this subsidised effect where you tax more and then you spend it on government-created job placements.
OK, I mean, they might also point out that there are other pressures on the job market, including the rise in AI, for example. And also the NEET problem is one that's been building for years, including under a Conservative government. It's not just a Labour problem, is it?
Something that happened under us, actually, is that when we took over from Labour after the financial crash and the disaster that they left the economy in 2010, youth unemployment, along with general unemployment, really came down. So we made a real difference to that. But what the government has done is really exacerbated a problem, a challenge for young people. And you mentioned AI. So yes, there of course is a lot of concern about what AI will do, particularly for skilled and graduate jobs. But actually, AI could be a real opportunity for British businesses to grow and become more productive. It's not always the case in other countries that you're seeing AI result in fewer jobs. Actually, AI can enable an economy to grow and create more jobs. There is going to be a period of uncertainty. But what this government is doing is destroying the confidence in businesses that they're going to grow. So rather than saying, OK, AI is an opportunity for us to hire young people who are going to be great at using this technology, businesses are saying, we're really worried about the economic environment that we're in. It's really expensive to hire people as well. So let's really cut back on hiring. So that's what the government is triggering. And this is a complete disaster for a whole generation of young people.
Helen Whately, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now, experts hope that a new approach to treating mental health could help reduce hospital admissions. The first NHS trial of open dialogue, which brings family and friends into discussions with clinicians about a patient's care, found people spent less time in hospital. So let's find out a little bit more about this. We can talk now to the Chief Executive of Mental Health UK, Brian Dow. Very good morning to you. So tell us a little bit more about how this system would work.
Well, I think this system is built on a very strong principle that the more that you involve not just the patients, but the network of people around them that they trust, that they know, and that know them in turn, that you're much more likely to get better outcomes. It's not in and of itself, you know, a kind of great revelation, but I think it's been very hard to apply that in the health system. And I think that's why the results of the study today, which show a reduction in the number of people who go back into hospital, and for those who do, actually that the time that they spend there is considerably less. I think it's not only good for individuals, it's good for the families, but it's good for the system as a whole. So I think these are really encouraging findings.
So how does it differ to what happens now? Because, I mean, we've done a very simple explanation there, bringing families and friends into discussions with clinicians. Most people would imagine that would happen anyway. So why is it different to what's happening now?
Well, I mean, historically, and certainly if you go back decades, I think it's fair to say that patients were done to, and the ability to convey your story and to be heard often resulted, frankly, in pretty bad outcomes for people. So what this is doing is bringing in those people who often will know the person much better. So, for example, if you are having a mental health crisis, you might not really be seeing things as they are. You might be in a state of crisis that means that you're not really able to convey what you need best. And that person who knows you better through good times and bad is able to step in to provide a bit of support. But it's also about a much more equal relationship between the practitioner, the doctor, and the patient, which I think helps build the trust, which lead to, as I say, better outcomes for everybody.
What role do you think drugs play? There has been a rise in the prescription of antidepressants. Is that helpful, or do you think that sometimes alternatives should be sought?
Well, for some people, clearly medication is the right thing, and that really depends on their personal circumstances. But most people who are on medication will tell you that they want to be on the lowest amount possible, and they want to have a kind of pathway to have a full recovery. So it works for some people, but having other forms of therapeutic support also help. And when you bear in mind with particularly mental health problems such as depression, you can have the illness itself, but all those other factors which bring to bear on the individual. So, for example, if somebody's having really serious financial problems, or their home's at risk, or they're losing their job, those will be the things that will drive really kind of poor experience. And so a support system that understands that, yes, getting the right kind of therapy or getting the right kind of medication quickly is important, but also trying to get those other forms of support that will make a big difference is, I think, the kind of 21st century version of healthcare that we should all be aspiring to.
Yeah, and if conversation and therapy is the way to move forward, do we have enough available therapists on the NHS? I mean, people will say that they have to wait too long to be able to see someone when sometimes the crisis is in the here and now.
That's exactly right. I mean, we have had a very significant gap between the number of people who need support and the workforce that is there to give them that support. So we have a major review going on at the moment, which will look at that and will make some recommendations. I hope that what we'll see arising from that is that people get much more speedy access to the care that they need. Because one thing that we know for certain is that when somebody has experienced a serious mental health problem and is on the verge of crisis, the longer you wait to intervene, the worse that will be for the individual. So we certainly need to look at the workforce, and I would argue that that isn't just the workforce who are clinicians, but it's all those other people providing those other forms of support that will really make a big difference.
Well, Brian Dow, really interesting to talk to you this morning. We really appreciate you taking the time to chat to us. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Let's get you up to date with some of the day's other headlines now. And a woman and her 7-year-old niece who died in a house fire near Middlesbrough have been named. 34-year-old Natalie MacDonald and Valentina Foster were killed in the blaze in Grangetown, under a mile from the site of Saturday's deadly wrong-way crash on the A66. Police are not ruling out a link between the two incidents and have arrested 2 men on suspicion of murder. The alleged mastermind of the September the 11th terror attacks will go on military trial in 2028. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed has been held at Guantanamo Bay, a US detention camp in Cuba, since 2006. The 61-year-old and 3 co-defendants face charges over the attacks, which killed nearly 3,000 people. A British man has become the first person in the world to have a brain tumour removed using live AI-assisted surgery. Doctors at the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery in London used the tool to highlight which areas they needed to avoid. 48-year-old Rhys Hibbert says the operation saved his eyesight. And the most valuable company in the world, Nvidia, has posted a gross profit of $133.3 billion US in the first half of the year. That far exceeds Wall Street expectations. Now, the British actor Tim Curry is being remembered for his flamboyant characters and generous heart after his death at the age of 80. He's best known for playing Dr. Frankenfurter in the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Well, you got caught with a flat world. How about that?
Well, in a career spanning 6 decades, Curry terrified a generation as the original Pennywise clown in Stephen King's movie It, and also starred in Home Alone 2. His Rocky Horror co-star Susan Sarandon said in tribute what a funny, sexy original he was. But what I loved about him most was his heart. Even wheelchair-bound, he continued to be so sweet and generous with his fans. Thank you, Tim, for meaning so much to so many people. Love you, S. Now, coming up in the next few minutes, I'm going to be speaking to a remarkable man, a veteran who became the first double above-the-knee amputee to climb Mount Everest. That's coming up. let's just update you on our top story now. And rescuers are desperately searching for survivors after extreme flooding hit the Nepal-Tibet border. At least 177 people have died in Nepal, but that number is expected to rise significantly. A huge search and rescue operation is underway for at least 826 people missing in Nepal, including 500 foreigners. And here's some of the latest footage that's come into us here at Sky, showing the flooding as it began. And you can see the workers running away in an attempt to get to higher ground. In just a moment, you'll see, you'll get a sense of that big wall of water that's approaching.
Oh my God, Mario. Mario, back.
Of those unaccounted for, 33 are Britons. The others are from India, the United States, Australia and Canada. And a glacial collapse is being blamed, not an earthquake, as was originally thought. Let's just show you the pictures from Tibet. Chinese state media is reporting that 558 people are missing there. Amongst those were 260 foreign nationals, and the death toll there is 3. And just to let you know that at 9 o'clock tonight, we do have a special programme on Sky News covering all the events in Nepal and Tibet, so do tune in for that. Now, my next guest is a 47-year-old former Gurkha soldier who made history becoming the first double above-knee amputee to summit the highest peaks on all 7 continents. Harry Budamaga is hoping to change perceptions around disability in his newly released memoir. And I'm very happy to say that Harry is here with me now. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for talking to us. And I want to hear all about your extraordinary mountaineering achievements. But first, I did want to get your reflections on the terrible tragedy that's been unfolding in Nepal, the country of your birth, of course, over the last 24 hours. What do you think when you see those pictures?
It's absolutely terrible news, Anna, and I just attended one of my friends' funeral yesterday, and listening this news, I can't just put my head around. I tested myself in that area to climb Everest, so I went twice. I did my winter training there as well. So it's absolutely devastating, and my heart goes out to all those victims and families.
So tell us a little bit more about the area, because a lot of people go there for treks and for climbing, don't they? Talk us through what it's like.
Yes, there is two areas very famous. One is like a Gosai Kunda, where particularly local and around tourist goes there. Another one is like a Langtang Valley, the tourist area, which is very popular for foreigners, and they go there. So I think there are a lot of people stuck there, and I hope that they will be rescued and evacuated as soon as possible.
Exactly, and that search and rescue operation are currently underway, and we'll keep everybody updated on that. But let's turn our attention to your achievements now, because you are, as we were saying, the first double above-knee amputee to summit Mount Everest, which is an extraordinary achievement amongst all your other achievements. But give us a sense of what motivated you to do that.
Mount Everest was my childhood dream. And I couldn't able to climb when I was a child. I couldn't climb when I was serving. I was more focused on my career, and there was, Iraq and Afghanistan, which is training operation. So just whenever I was traveling, looking up that snow-capped mountain anywhere in the world, it just reminded me of Everest. So I was just thinking, how am I going to climb it without legs? And in some ways, I went to that's the whole area that I went and tested myself first and decided to climb it.
Amazing. And you mentioned Afghanistan, and it was there that you lost your legs in an IED attack. Give us a sense of the impact that has had on you.
I think initially for me it was accepting myself was a very hard thing, but also my perception, the way people with disability was looked in when I was growing up, and I thought that I'll be the burden for my family, burden of this planet. I tried to take my life. I turned into alcoholic, but some ways I started sports and adventure, which gave me confidence, and later I thought that actually I can fulfill my childhood dream.
Yeah, and perhaps change perceptions as well, that your childhood dream was to climb Everest, and in fact you did it after you'd lost your legs. How important is it to you to send out that message that you can do things in just the same way?
For me, it's super important that anything is possible if you put your mind into it, and we'll find a way to do it as long as we have a will. And I have dedicated my life to making awareness of disability. This is why I climb the mountains. My book is called Conquering Dreams, and it was my childhood dream to climb Everest. And you know, you have one dream to another dream to another dream. So later it became 7 Summits. So it's the name of the expedition of the Mount Everest and 7 Summits. And now my book is called Conquering Dreams.
And how was it? Did it live up to expectations?
Yes, and I hope that this book will, redefine the possible, and also I hope that it will inspire and help many people to climb their own mountain and conquer their own dreams, whatever that may be.
And I mentioned there sort of changing perceptions about disability. I know you do have some concerns about biases within AI, don't you, when it comes to disabled people? Talk us through what your concerns are there.
I have taken part in the AI campaign. So the AI is, doesn't represent us in a right way. So we are helping a library. We have set up the library where that AI can learn about the different kind of people with a disability. At the moment, if you see it, if you research that says, show me the picture of the disabled person, normally it's whether it's like a sci-fi, like a bionic person, or someone sitting on a manual wheelchair, or someone athletes, and we all are not like that. Simply most of people with the disability, we need to just do the day-to-day life, or dropping our children to school, or a child going to school with a disability, or someone wants to do their garden with disability, or going to the work. So it's just it's not represented all. So we're trying to help AI to understand that
and tackle those outdated stereotypes. What's your next challenge?
So my book is getting published today. So we're hoping to get the documentary. Hope that will also make awareness of disability. And I'm an adventurous man, and I look forward to doing some adventures from next year.
Well, come back and tell us all about them when you do. Such a pleasure to chat to you this morning. Harry Budumaga, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Let's take a quick look at the weather now.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, it looks pretty unsettled into the bank holiday weekend, with thundery downpours bringing the risk of localised flooding, but the storm's extent and distribution are uncertain. Heavy thundery rain will push north across England, Wales and the southeast of Ireland this morning. Hail, frequent lightning and gusty winds will be additional hazards, but sunny spells and a few showers will follow to the south. Elsewhere, it'll be largely fine, bar the odd shower, mainly over eastern Scotland, and it's going to be warm and humid.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Now, testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT, has been labelled game-changing by some men. But doctors are concerned that social media is pushing people towards its use unnecessarily, and it can come with lifelong consequences. Well, Sky's Barnaby Papadopoulos has been investigating.
I've got the actual prescription, testosterone itself.
Ben is one of a growing number of men injecting testosterone every week.
This has been game-changing for me, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Many say this drug has changed their lives, but some of Britain's top doctors are worried.
It causes high blood pressure, it makes your cholesterol worse. I've got no doubt that if everyone took it in the world, then you would actually hasten the demise of many men.
Masculinity is the resistance.
Is social media convincing men that testosterone levels are key to understanding masculinity?
If you weren't getting tested and you weren't taking testosterone replacement therapy, that you weren't this real man.
Others say this is a condition long under-researched. one finally getting the attention it deserves.
The best single indicator of a man's health is his testosterone level.
So is testing and treating our testosterone levels really the key to improving our health? Or is the wellness industry selling men solutions to a problem that, for many, doesn't actually exist?
And Barnaby is here to tell us a little bit more. And we should say, before I talk to you, in case we forget later, you can watch this full film later on, and also you can see it on YouTube. That's right, isn't it, Barnaby?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And what we've done in this film is really explore the debate that's going on around testosterone therapy, who needs it and who would most benefit from treatment. Just to explain what it is, it's a hormone. We all have it. In men, it's something that contributes towards sexual function, towards muscle mass, towards energy. And if you don't have enough, and sometimes people can't produce enough naturally, sometimes it declines slightly with age, there are symptoms like sexual dysfunction, tiredness, even anxiety and depression. But there is a bit of a debate in the medical community about who actually has low testosterone, because there are some men who believe they do, and doctors say, actually, maybe you don't. Maybe you are just feeling tired. Maybe you are just feeling anxious. But the concerns they have is that on social media, there are people saying, if you feel these things, you need to look at your testosterone levels. And treating low testosterone is pretty invasive. They are often injections, sometimes 2 every week. It's expensive. It can cause infertility, and it's often lifelong. So not a treatment to take on unless you're really serious and know that you definitely need it.
And often lifelong, because once you start taking the injections, you stop producing it yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So testosterone replacement therapy, TRT, stops the body producing testosterone itself. It also inhibits sperm production, and that's why it can cause infertility. Now, there are drugs you can take to stop those things, but of course that then costs more money. I mean, we're already talking about treatment pathways that cost well over £100 a month. And there's concern from some people, and we try and draw this out in the film, that social media is convincing some men that having low testosterone actually means there's a crisis in their masculinity, that they're perhaps not a real man, which can then cause health anxiety and all sorts of other things. But, you know, this is a debate that is ongoing. Just last month, the US Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, announced testosterone screening for all members of the US military over the age of 30, something that's been pretty controversial over there, and it's becoming pretty controversial over here as well, as we have found out. And as you say, you can see that film from midday today on Sky News YouTube.
Yeah, sounds really interesting. Barnaby, thanks very much indeed. Let me just bring you a little bit of breaking news now, because we're getting various figures out from the government. The ONS, the Office for National Statistics, has reported that the number of young people not in education, employment or training, known as NEETs, has fallen to 981,000 from more than 1 million earlier on this year. And some other breaking news as well. We've also got the number of asylum seekers housed in hotel accommodation. That has fallen again. It was just over 16,000 at the end of June, down 70% on the peak in September 2023, while the number of small boat arrivals was 23% lower than the previous year. There have been 38,000 detected arrivals via illegal entry routes. And because these statistics are up to the end of June, it's worth noting that they don't cover any of Andy Burnham's tenure as Prime Minister. So those latest figures in, we'll get lots more analysis in the hours to come of those figures and the implications of them. But you've got the bald facts there. Stay with us, we've got what's coming up for you, including Usain Bolt's 100-metre record is broken once again as China continue to show off their humanoid robots.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
There seems to be some sort of a shooting, what appears to be shots fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
It was a jam-packed interview. I'll tell you what he told me, and I'll explain why you can't hear the call.
100 days in and back with the grassroots of this MAGA movement.
It feels a little bit like he's a king, not a president.
He is a king.
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too.
Are these immigration rates?
Unbelievable.
inevitable we've come to this.
I'm observing what you're doing.
This post of Trump, it's a big shift. It's very positive.
Have you seen what Donald Trump's been up to? In the Rose Garden, in the East Wing.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Middle East correspondent.
We've just entered Gaza. The vista out there is complete destruction.
I'll always remember going into Gaza City during the war. All around us was destruction and the sounds of battle. I witnessed the scars of the October the 7th attacks, burnt out homes, bullet holes in walls and bloodstains on the floor.
People were murdered, people were kidnapped.
The Israelis insist that many of these prisoners are terrorists, but here the Palestinians consider them a blend of freedom fighters and political prisoners.
These are the settlers in waiting, keen to start a new life.
The least we can do is just kick them out of our land.
Sky News, get the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Now, I don't know if you've seen any of the World Humanoid Games or Robot Games, as they've been called in China. If not, stand by, because you're going to see some extraordinary pictures. And if you have seen them, you'll be aware that there's rapid progress in this field, although it wasn't always smooth sailing. And it comes as warnings grow over national security risks, as well as the use of technology for military and weapons. So lots to talk about with Dr. Fazl Barres, who leads the Technical Safety and Governance Lab at the University of Oxford. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for talking to us. So this week we've seen endless pictures of humanoid robots playing various sports, football, sprinting, and carrying out increasingly complex tasks in Beijing this week. I mean, how significant a milestone do you think this is as far as the development of humanoid robots is concerned?
Good morning to you. So I think it's fairly significant in terms of how far the technology has come from. Historically, we've seen robots being, pre-programmed and mainly functioning inside of a cage or a box, as we call it. However, now with the advancement in artificial intelligence, we are able to enhance the hardware and software together. Now, of course, as you said, these advancements comes with new safety and ethical issues that are all very important for us to think about.
Well, yes, and talk us through that a little bit more. I mean, how much has this got to do with the use of AI in humanoid robots?
So perhaps there are two different categories that we should think about. One is that there are robots that does everyday and very controlled set of tasks that are very repetitive, and then the sort of robots like the ones that beats Usain Bolt's record, which has these enhanced artificial intelligence embedded in them. So the advancement is there, but of course we are yet to see how likely it is that they will be doing most of our day-to-day functions, in hospitals, in care homes, and so forth and so on. The sort of tasks that we eventually want the systems to be deployed.
Is there a risk of rogue robots?
Well, unfortunately, I think there's a lot of risks of these technologies going rogue, but not primarily for the reason that headlines look for them, but rather for the reasons that we don't necessarily know how to safeguard the systems that are going to be eventually much smarter than us. For the best part of history, humans have always been in charge, mainly because the sort of systems that we had to interact and govern were less intelligent than us. So the question before us is how do we, make sure the systems that are going to interact with us in daily life and the systems that are going to be far more intelligent than us are going to be serving us and not taking over the world.
And how fast do you think progress will be? I know China is investing a huge amount of money in this, aren't they? They're determined to beat the United States in development. So do you think we'll see this being a fast-changing area?
So, as you might have seen in last week's news and reports, the advancement and level of progress has been, astonishing. For instance, the running robots could only complete the 100-meter race in about 21 seconds last year, and it's already down to under just 10 seconds. So you just see how, in the space of 12 months, how much progress can be achieved. Now, there are, of course, different layers in this pipeline. There's the software and the hardware. The hardware, China is obviously significantly in front of everyone.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we're completely out of time. We're about to go off air, but we really appreciate your time. We'll discuss this again in future.